I'm going to kick this off. We are 1 minute after 12. So welcome everyone. We have the Insurance Untangled live event happening today. And this is a 3-hour CE event. Goes little past 3:20. I'll go through the schedule in a minute. I'm Narain Aruraja. I'm one of the founders along with Ben Tuna. Ben is here of the Insurance Untangled platform. So the first 5 minutes, I'll just welcome everyone, share my remarks. Then Gary Takacs would, lead on with our keynote address. He has 45 minutes. He will finish at 12:50, and it's in a Q&A format. So Gary will be talking about questions that you all submitted that you have with regards to successfully resigning from PPO plans. Gary is well known for sharing a 6-step plan for resigning from PPO plans. Of course, I'll let Gary, share his strategies and his experience over the last 40 plus years, but he has 6 steps to successfully resign from PPO plans. So these questions come from audiences, around how to successfully resign from PPO plans. Then we have a business panel. And the question we are going to be discussing is out of network. Is it trending? Is it good? Is it bad for practice owners? So I have 2 guests for that portion of the presentation. That's from 12:50 to 1:35 Eastern Time. Brian Hanks and Howard Fran. Brian, I'll introduce both Brian and Howard. I know many of you know probably Brian and or Howard, so say hello to them. They just joined and they'll come back. Then we'll take a 10-minute break, and that break is from 1:35 Eastern Time to 1:45 Eastern Time. Then from 1:45 to 2:30, we have another 45-minute panel. That's Erica, Tessina, and Morgan. Erica Aguilar, Tessina Bullock, and Morgan Miller. And they will be talking about coding, billing, and fixing the bloody Prophy Palace. And the host of that panel would be Ben. The clinical panel will be hosted by Ben. I'll be hosting the business panel. And then Ryan Davies, who's a marketing expert, will be presenting for 35 minutes on breaking free from PPO plans and building your ideal patient base. And that's from 2:40 Eastern Time to 3:15 Eastern Times. Then I have 5 minutes at the end to share my closing remarks, and Ben will join me to share his closing remarks as well. So that's it for the agenda for today. Let's get going. So Gary, it's your flow now. So you take it away with the keynote. So feel free to share your screen.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Darren, I can't share my screen while another participant is sharing.
Right. So Brian, if you can, yeah, perfect.
All right. So it looks like I'm able to share my screen now. Let's just get there.
Perfect.
And let me put it in the right viewing format, slideshow.
And while Gary is pulling his slides up, just remember, you will get 3 hours of CE, 2 requirements. You stay till the end, and then you fill out a survey, which we'll be sharing, towards the end. We'll be sharing a lot of information, a lot of links. So please take notes, please take screenshots, make as much use of this event as possible. Gary, take it away.
Hey, all right. Thanks for the opening comments, Naren, and thanks to you and Ben for putting on this Insurance Untangled event. And thanks for all of you for attending. Well, I understand it takes a lot of effort to come out here on a Friday and spend your time with us, and we're going to reward it with lots of useful information that you can apply. I'm going to walk through some concepts I have in terms of helping you successfully reduce your insurance dependence. Notice that I call it reducing insurance dependence as opposed to going fee for service. And the reason I call it reducing insurance dependence is that every time you successfully resign from a PPO plan, you're improving your practice. You don't have to go all the way to fee for service to make significant improvement in your practice. However, for those of you that want to go to fee for service, then I will be your biggest cheerleader, because the way to get the most out of this is to go all the way to fee for service. However, that's not appropriate for all offices. So the format, as Naren mentioned, is not so much a slide deck, but I am going to share those 6 steps. But I have questions. I believe I've selected 12 questions that were submitted by all of you. And I picked the ones that I thought were maybe had the broadest interest. And I'm going to walk through those questions, all built around this concept of how do I do this? I get why I need to do this, Gary, but how in the world do I do this successfully? And how do I do it without decimating my practice? So that's the format. So first of all, again, thank you for joining. 45 minutes Q&A. I'll be the timekeeper. And here we go. A little bit of background on me. This is my 44th year in this amazing profession. I started in 1980. That officially makes me an old guy. I'm not a dentist. I never have been. My background falls in two specific areas. The business of dentistry and the behavioral side of dentistry, the people side of dentistry. My day job is that I own a consulting firm. Myself and my team work with practices all over the country to help you develop a thriving practice. I've been a frequent speaker at major dental meetings, both nationally as well as internationally. I've spoken at just about every dental conference in North America. There might be a few stragglers I haven't been to, but have had the privilege of speaking at most of those. I'm the founder and the host of the Thriving Dentist Show, the very first dental podcast. I started that dental podcast in 2011 when podcasting was kind of in its infancy. And I'm rather proud to say that today we have listeners in 188 countries for the Thriving Dentist Show. Naren and I also started a second podcast called the Less Insurance Dependence Podcast. We started that about 6 years ago, and we're coming up on episode 300. The Thriving Dentist Show is published every Wednesday. We do a new episode every Wednesday. By the way, we haven't missed an episode in 657 weeks with the Thriving Dentist Show. Less Insurance Dependence is coming on. We're coming up on our 300th episode. That's coming up. That's about 6 years of publishing. The Less Insurance Dependence podcast is a narrow podcast, all focused on reducing insurance. And it's short format, 15 to 18 minutes. Naren, is it possible for you to put links in chat so that if I mention links, you can put those in chat for our listeners?
Of course, our team is doing that, Gary.
So if you guys would be kind enough to put a link for the most recent Thriving Dentist Show episode, put that in chat, and also put a link for the most recent Less Insurance Dependence podcast. What the team is doing is putting those links in chat. You can click those links in chat, and then I would encourage you to bookmark those in your computer so you have access to all the information, all the resources we're sharing as we go. You can have access to those after the event today. I'm an instructor at the Pankey Institute in Key Biscayne, Florida. Dr. Pankey had a huge influence in my professional life. And a number of years ago, I was invited to join their faculty. I spend about 7 weeks a year teaching at the Pankey Institute in Key Biscayne, Florida. Don't feel bad for me. Key Biscayne, Florida is an island off of Miami. It's not a bad place to go. And the Pankey Institute is a place that dentists from around the world go to learn how to do complex restorative dentistry. And then maybe the most important part of my background is that although I am not a dentist and have never been a dentist, I have been a practice owner. In 2007, I learned that in Arizona, you don't have to be a dentist to own a practice. And I bought a practice in partnership with a young dentist, Dr. Paul Nielsen. We bought a dilapidated fixer-upper practice, and over the last 17 years have been on a journey to develop that into our ideal practice. Very different practice today. Today, it's a 3-doctor practice. We have 24 team members. We have 5 hygienists. It's a wonderful practice here in Phoenix. In 2022, late 2022, I sold my shares of partnership back to Paul and Tim. We started out as a solo dentist practice with Paul Nielsen. We added a second doctor, Dr. Tim Schmidt, in 2013. He became a partner in 2015. So we diluted our 50-50 shares to a third. And we continued to operate it from 2015 to 2022 with the 3 of us as partners. In late 2022, I sold my shares back to Paul and Tim so that I could focus this next chapter of my life on coaching and helping as many dentists as possible develop a thriving practice. Anyway, enough about me. Here's the questions. And by the way, these questions are written exactly as you submitted them. So there might be some grammatical errors. There might be some things I have to fill in, but they're on the screen exactly as they were submitted. So first question, is it even possible to go fee for service when more than 95% of our patient base is covered by insurance? Okay. The short answer is yes. However, Let me tell you that in your own 95% of your practice means that virtually everyone in your practice is insurance. Only 5% are not. Let me tell you why I can confidently say, yes, you can do this. In my coaching work, we've helped over 400 practices successfully resign from PPO plans. And the most extreme example was a client of ours that 97% of his practice, 97% of his practice were PPO patients. Only 3% were cash or non-insurance patients. Now, it seemed daunting to him. However, we were able to successfully resign, and he went all the way to fee-for-service. Remember, you don't have to go all the way, but he went all the way to fee-for-service, and he started with 97% of his patient base. By the way, he retained many of those patients. He lost some patients. Now, I'm going to be very blunt with you right here. You are going to lose patients when you resign from PPO plans. You are going to lose patients. Read my lips. You're going to lose some. However, when you do it properly, you will minimize the loss of those patients. One of our goals is to help you keep as many of your existing PPO patients as possible. But you will lose some. The ones that you lose, the only reason they're coming to you is because you're on their plan. They can't perceive any other reason to come to you. And so they will leave to go to another office that accepts their plan. But if we do this right, we can keep as many as possible. So if a client of ours had 97% PPO patients, and he was able to do this, also in a highly competitive area, he was in an urban area that was highly competitive. He was a suburban practice in a large city. And if he was able to do this, then I can confidently say yes. In most cases, what we experience with our coaching work, when we first evaluate a practice and we try to figure out, okay, what do we need to do? What steps do we need to follow and so on? What we normally see is a very high percentage of patients are PPO patients. A normal range is 80%. So 95% would be higher than normal. But again, it's been done before. You've heard that saying before. If it's been done before, it must be possible. So yes, this has been done before and it is possible. But what we normally see is about 80% PPO. Sometimes less. Sometimes we see 75, but normally it's a majority of the patients. And the reason for that is because if you're a PPO practice, the predominant way you get your patients is by being listed on the websites of the insurance company, being listed on Delta Dental. So the patient goes to Delta Dental and they look for a provider that accepts, that is an in-network provider, and they choose you. And that's your number one way of growing your practice and getting new patients. So because of that, it becomes the dominant aspect of your practice. Let me keep going. Let me go to question number 2. A lot of these will overlap. Okay, what is the plan to resign successfully from PPO plans? All right, let me reveal that to you. Here's the 6-step plan. All right, these 6 steps are all important. What I'm going to do now is list each one of these 6 steps, and then I'll talk about some of the details, but throughout the questions, I'll talk about these steps as we go. Think of these 6 steps as your blueprint to successfully resign from PPO plans. We've done this over 400 times. It's kind of like if you're going to build a building, we'd go to an architect, the architect would draw up a set of plans, and then if you follow those plans, you'll end up with a great building. Well, same thing here. You want to resign from PPO plans? Let's follow the proven path that has succeeded. So step number 1 is know your data. Let me explain what that is. Knowing your data involves 3 pieces of information. We need to know how many plans you're contracted with. And while that seems like a simple question, it's actually a slippery slope because of the umbrella nature of many plans. But we need to know exactly how many plans you're contracted with. So imagine a spreadsheet, that simple Excel spreadsheet that has 3 columns of information. Column number 1 is the name of every plan you're contracted with. And I would simply alphabetize it there in column number 1. Column number 2, we want to know how many active patients you have in each plan. Active is my definition is they've had an appointment in your practice in the last 18 months. So if they've had an appointment in your last 18 months and they're on, let's say Aetna is the first one, then we want to know how many active patients you have on Aetna. The third column is we want to know how much notice you're required to give to the PPO plan to resign. Typically that's 90 days, but it's not always 90. It could be 30, 60, or 90. And it could even be a random number, but most of the time it's 30, 60, or 90. So we need to find out how much notice you're required to give. All this information comes into play when we choose the priority in which we're going to resign from the PPO plans. So step number one, know your data. Step number two, develop a comprehensive marketing plan, because we've got to replace, I'll keep using Delta in my example, because Delta is the 5,000-pound gorilla. They're the ones that are very difficult to work with. So I'll use Delta. I doubt that we have any Delta executives on our event today. So we need to replace Delta as a source of new patients with some other source. So we need a comprehensive marketing plan to do that. So the marketing plan needs to accomplish two things. It needs to allow us to replace any patients you might lose when you go out of network. And secondly, replace the historic flow of new patients that have come in from the PPO plans. Let's say, hypothetically, you get 20 new patients a month from Delta. The day you resign, you are delisted from their website, and you will stop getting new patients from Delta. And if you average 20 a month, if we annualize that, that's 240 patients a year. We've got to have another source of new patients, since that source just dried up. So step number two, develop a comprehensive marketing plan. Step number three is a granular detail, but it's an important one. Create an in-office membership plan. An in-office membership plan. An in-office membership plan is a great way to attract people in your community that don't have insurance. By the way, the universe of people that don't have dental insurance is actually larger than the universe of people that do have dental insurance. Let's go find them. And we can use your in-office membership plan as a way to attract people that don't have dental insurance. A membership plan, we simply come up with an annual fee that would cover the hygiene appointments, 2 hygiene appointments, cleanings, exams, and x-rays. And then we offer our patients in the membership plan a 10% savings, a 10% discount on any fee in your practice when it comes to any services beyond their hygiene, those 2 hygiene services that are covered. By the way, we did the heavy lifting and we tested this for you a number of years ago. We tested across 1,200 offices. What is the sweet spot for the discount? I don't like the 10% discount. Let me put that out there right now. But I like it a whole lot better than the 45 to 50% discount that you're subjected to on the PPO plans. And we did scientific testing using a testing company in A/B split testing, 1,200 practices. We tested 20%, 18%, 15%, 12%, 10%, and 8%. And what we learned was that 10% was the sweet spot. It was enough to encourage people to sign up, but it had a lesser impact on you, than a higher discount. So there you go. Create an in-office membership plan and then market it in your community to attract people that don't have insurance. Step 4, get your team 100% supportive of your plan. Succeeding in resigning from PPO plans is a team sport. We got to get your team on board. And we have to spend whatever time is necessary to train your team with verbal skills, what to say it, how to overcome objections, how to answer that phone when someone says, hey, I have Delta, do you take my insurance? This is a very, very important detail, of course. Step 5, elevate the relationship-driven aspect of your practice. What do I mean by relationship-driven? What I mean is we know our patients' names, we know their spouse's name, we know their kids' names, we know their hobbies, we know their interests, we know the dog's name. We maybe know that our patient Linda is taking care of an elderly mother right now. The more relationship-driven means that we connect with your patients and we develop rapport and relationship. The more relationship-driven you are, the more successful you will be with this. And everything about being in a PPO plan as a participant takes you away from being relationship-driven. Because to make the PPO plan work, you got to strap roller skates on your feet every day. Well, you better put the rocket boosters on the back of the roller skates. You got to shoosh up and down the hall because you're giving away 45 to 50% of your fees to the fat cats at the insurance company. So one of the cool ways to find satisfaction in the profession is to slow down, spend a little bit more time with your patients, and reducing your insurance dependence allows you to do that. All right, step 5, just a second. Step 6, add services not covered by insurance. Add high-value services. What are some high-value services? Placing restoring implants, adult orthodontics. Maybe we do an aligner like Invisalign or 6-month smiles. Maybe we do cosmetic dentistry. Cosmetic dentistry could be a lot of things, but I tend to think of cosmetic dentistry as a lab-fabricated veneer case. What my friend David Hornbrook, Dr. Hornbrook, would call a smile design case. Great high value service to add. Maybe we add oral conscious sedation as a high value service. Maybe we do complex restorative dentistry. If you're in an area where you have a patient base that can benefit from complex restorative dentistry, let's put those skills on the shelf so you can help your patients enjoy great oral health with complex restorative dentistry. Another high value service I like is diagnosing and treating obstructive sleep apnea with appliance therapy. The reason why this fits in this 6-step plan is these services aren't covered by insurance. Now, if you're doing an implant, the patient is likely to ask, hey, doc, is my implant covered by insurance? That's a fair question, but it's actually an easy one to answer. Well, Joe, unfortunately, your dental insurance was only meant to cover the most basic things, and dental implants are far from basic. So no, they don't cover it. The patient's not happy with that response, but they understand. So the more of those high value services that you can do, the more it insulates you from being insurance dependent. So there's the 6-step plan right there. By the way, I would invite you and encourage you to take a photo of that slide. You're welcome to take a photo of any of my slides. And you've got your blueprint right there. All right, step 3. What is the greatest financial impact of dropping PPOs? Let me answer that. This is a 2-part question. Second part, do you still bill insurance for patients? Part 1 of that question, what's the greatest financial impact of dropping PPOs? You will get your full fee. On the average discount on a PPO plan is 45 to 50% of your UCR fee. Now, many dentists don't know what they're writing off, and let me tell you why. There's 2 ways to enter your fees into your practice management software, Dentrix, Eaglesoft, Open Dental. One way is you enter your UCR fees. And then the software does the heavy lifting when you get the EOB to determine what your adjusted production was. And here's the thing, only 10% of dentists enter their UCR fees in the fee guides in your practice management software. The benefit of entering the fee guides, entering your fees, is that I can press a button and see what my insurance adjustments are every year. Every month, I can see what my insurance adjustments are. The other way that's an accounting norm to enter your fees is you simply enter your contracted fees. 90% of dentists enter their contracted fees. All 3 major practice management software encourages you to do that. And I don't disagree with that because it makes it a lot easier to track your collections. However, by entering your contracted fees, you never know what you're writing off. You're driving an exotic sports car, that's your practice, blindfolded. You don't know what you're writing off. I recently did the analysis for a client, a new client of ours. This was a practice that collected $1 million last year, a strong solo dentist office. And we learned I've written a custom Excel sheet that allows us to estimate that. And we learned that he had to produce $1,537,000 in order to collect $1 million. The difference between the $1,507,000 and the $1 million isn't poor collections. It's the insurance write-offs. But he had to produce $1,537,000 in real fees to collect the $1 million that he collected. He was writing off $537,000 a year. He didn't know that. He knew it was big, but he didn't know how much. Now, second question, do we still bill insurance for patients? Let me pause here. There is some differences of opinion about what it means to be fee-for-service. And I'm going to share with you what my definition of fee-for-service is. My definition is that you're allowed to charge whatever fee you want. That's fee-for-service. You can choose your fee scale. You're not letting some third party, Delta, set your fees. And I teach a very patient-friendly approach where we still file claims for our patients. I teach our offices to still file the claims. There are some that think in order to be fee-for-service, you should just wash your hands of it, hand the patient a claim form and say, if you want to get reimbursed, that's up to you. You have to take it from here. I disagree with that. I don't think that's very patient-friendly. Any of us on this event today could file an insurance claim. However, the public can't do that. So I teach an approach where we still file the claims. That means we still have an insurance coordinator in the practice. We still have to know about coding. That's why I'm really excited about the future session we have on coding today. We still have to know about coding. We still have to know about narratives. We still have to know about proper claim submission. We have to know about all that, compliance. But I recommend a friendly approach where we submit claims. We follow up with our patients on claims. Patients pay us, but we submit claims. If the PPO plan will still allow us to accept assignment of benefits out of network, I recommend that we accept assignment of benefits because it makes it one less hurdle for the patient to jump over. It is a level of complication that it adds to your practice, but you all have the capability of handling that. So Do you still bill insurance for patient? The answer is the way I teach it, yes. Others might disagree. Question number 4. What's the best strategy for collecting money up front? So Delta, again, I'll use Delta because they're the 5,000-pound gorilla. Delta won't allow you to accept assignment of benefits once you go out of network. And they do that to drive a wedge between you and your patients. So they will always send the check to the patient. Now, many of the other PPO plans will allow you to accept assignment of benefits. And as I said earlier, if they will, sure, check the box, say sure. And when it comes to Delta, you're going to need to collect at time of service. Here's how I teach to do that. So we tell the patient, Mary, because we're no longer contracted with Delta, they're now going to send you the check directly. I wish they wouldn't do that, but they're difficult about this, and they now send you the check. Because of that, we ask our patients to pay at time of service. What most of our patients do is they put it on a debit or credit card. We're going to go ahead and file your claim today. It'll be in their hands by today, the end of the business today. It'll be in Delta's hands. You should get a check very quickly from Delta, well before your credit card statement even comes due, so you're not really even going out of pocket. And if you don't have a check from Delta with, let's say, 2 weeks, march into your benefit supervisor at work and let them know that. Let them know, because now Delta's hanging on to your money. That's how we do that. Now, is everyone happy about that? No. But if you're in a relationship-driven practice, most people will go along with that. And most people could put today's hygiene visit on a debit or credit card. Now, for the record, we've been teaching that approach for a number of years. To our knowledge, no one has ever had to march into the benefit supervisor at work saying, I haven't gotten paid. Why is that? Well, let's think about that. Delta doesn't care about you. We already know that. They do not care about your patient. In fact, they hope your patient never goes to the dentist, because they never go to the dentist. Then they're never going to have to file. You're never going to file any claims, and they'll never have to pay anything. So they get all the premiums and never have to pay benefits. But who do they care about? They care about the employer, because the employer writes the check to Delta. And they want to keep the employer happy. And they know the way to keep the benefit supervisor happy is to keep their employees happy. So they pay the patients very quickly, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days on average after date of service. You've never gotten paid that quick from Delta. What to do if insurance? I got to answer the second part of this question. Do you suggest pre-authorizing everything? No, no, and no. Pre-authorization is a trick that the insurance company came up with to eliminate ever doing treatment. Back in the old days, when we used to have, everything was on paper and we would file predeterminations, we'd have cabinets full of predetermination. This was dentistry that was predetermined that the patient never did. And why is that? Because now the tooth doesn't hurt. So they know by delaying 6-8 weeks to get a predetermination back, the insurance company know that there's a ton of people that will never have that treatment done. So no, I do not suggest pre-authorizing everything. Pre-authorization is a trick. Now, there are genuine reasons to pre-authorize treatment. A good reason would be if you're doing a service that you don't normally do and you have no idea what insurance is going to pay. Then you might want to pre-authorize that so you have a guideline. And you'll learn more in the panel, the coding panel, about pre-authorization. By the way, at the bottom of the pre-authorization, little tiny fine print, I think it's like 4-point print. You need to get out a magnifying glass. It says this pre-authorization is no guarantee of anything. It's no guarantee the patient's covered. It's no guarantee of any payment. It doesn't guarantee anything. Who benefits from that? What if insurance company approves the predetermination but then denies payment? Happens all the time. What recourse do you have? Well, every state has a state insurance commission. The state insurance commission is not an advocate for you, doctor. It's not an advocate for you. It is a public advocate. In other words, they're an advocate for the public. So when you file a complaint to the state insurance commissioner, it falls on deaf ears because they are not your advocate. But if your patient files a complaint or registers a complaint, like they could say, my treatment was pre-authorized, was predetermined, and then the insurance company wouldn't pay it. If the patient files that complaint, then the insurance commissioner is required by state law to look into it. And the last thing in the world that the insurance company wants is the state insurance commission breathing down their neck. That's the last thing in the world that they want to fly under the radar. So one of the things you could do, you could respond back when you get a predetermination. You can call the insurance company and say, we have received a predetermination on this, but now you're denying payment. We are going to advise our patient to file a complaint with the state insurance commission. As soon as you say that, the words we're going to advise our patient to file a complaint with the state insurance commission. The person you're speaking to at the insurance company now knows that the gig is up. You know the code. And some of them will just authorize payment for that because they want to avoid, they might just say, okay, well, we'll go ahead and authorize it then. It won't happen every time, but the threat of filing an insurance claim is your ultimate leverage when necessary with the insurance companies. Will we ever have recourse when insurances screw up? Remember, these are submitted as, these are written on the screen as submitted. Yes, like I just said, your recourse is to have the patient file a complaint with the state insurance commission. Same with delay of payment. Insurance companies have 30 days to pay or respond to claims. This proves how strong the lobby is with insurance companies because they have 30 days to pay or respond. That means they could send you a notice 29 days after treatment requesting more information. And now the 30-day clock starts again. But you do have ultimate recourse. The ultimate recourse is to threaten the insurance company with a legitimate threat. If I don't receive payment within 7 days, please know we'll be advising our patient to file a formal complaint with the state insurance commission. That's literally like it just strikes fear in the heart of executives at the insurance company. They do not want the state insurance commission breathing down their neck. Now, I've given courses like this for many years, and I've often had people that used to work at insurance companies who now work for dental offices in my audience. And I've had them come up to me at the break and say, Gary, this is exactly what we were taught in the insurance companies. We were taught that if anyone ever threatens that the patient would file a complaint, hey, if they say we're going to file a complaint, then we just laugh under our breath because we know it has no clout. But whenever someone from the dental office, the doctor or the office manager, would threaten that the patient would file a complaint, many times we'd take the lesser path of lesser evil and just pay the claim. So there you go. What are some ideas for keeping patients after moving on? Well, as I said before, you're going to lose patients when you go out of network. But if you do it right, you'll minimize the loss of your existing patient. And I'll talk about the details in some other questions coming up. But the best way is to recognize that no amount of persuasion is going to convince a patient to stay in your practice if they only want to go to an office that's in network. No amount of persuasion. So the best thing to do is to replace them. Go out and market. There's plenty of other people. How many people do you need in your practice to have a great practice? It depends on your scope of practice. Are you a solo dentist practice? Do you have 2 doctors? Are you a multiple doctor? Are you multiple location? What is it? And you need to replace them. And the best way, in my opinion, my experience, the best way to replace them today is to replace Delta as your source of new patients with Google as your source of new patients. Think about that. Would you rather get a new patient from Delta? Now, the truth is you can get a good patient from Delta, correct? I mean, if it was a live audience, I'd ask you this question right now. Is that true? Sure. But many of them arrive with baggage. What's the baggage they arrive with? An insurance mindset. They only want to have something done if it's covered by insurance. Put another way, they only want to have something done if it's free. They don't really value you. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to persuade someone if that's their mindset. Let's just go find someone else. And step number 2 in the plan, let's develop a comprehensive marketing plan to consistently attract quality new patients from Google. And we do that through organic search engine optimization. Clients, that office that was writing off $537,000 a year in insurance now spends $15,000 a year, $1,250 a month on a comprehensive marketing plan to be listed on page 1 on Google doesn't pay Google any ads, has earned it by the performance of his website. He's now spending $15,000 a year instead of $537,000 a year in the form of those write-offs. Doctor, which would you prefer? Take as long as you like. Would you rather spend $537,000 a year? I say spend in air quotes, or $15,000. From this moment on, think of your adjustments as a marketing expense because you're paying Delta to provide you patients. And it's the expense that never ends. Can you imagine someone approaching you? Hey, doctor, I've got a marketing plan for you. You're going to love this. We'll send new patients to your practice, and all you have to do is pay me 45 to 50% of your fees for eternity on those patients. Would anyone sign up for that? No, but that's what you sign up for when you're a PPO provider. So the best idea is marketing. I'm going to introduce Ryan Davies. Ryan is a presenter later today. He's presenting a segment, but he is a brilliant dental marketing advisor, and he works for a company called Equa Digital Marketing. Equa is the agency that I use at LifeSmiles, that we use at LifeSmiles, and we also recommend to our clients, and they're masters at digital marketing. Naren, is Ryan on our panel?
I'm here.
Hey, Ryan, would you say hello to the folks in my segment?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you so much, Gary, for the kind words there. And it's been listening and going, boy, I think there's going to be a lot of similarities between what you're talking about and what I've got in a slide deck lined up, and being able to drive what you've said just home, continue that messaging home. So thanks, Gary. I really appreciate it. And I love when you bat lead off and I get to hit cleanup. I'm a big baseball fan, but it works really well. It's a great combination. I can't wait to be able to present, and always love your presentations. Thanks, Gary.
Well, thanks, Ryan. You and I enjoy baseball, so we like those analogies. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but I do want our attendees to start thinking about those adjustments that they're subjected to under PPO plans as a marketing expense. I think you're going to show them a way to radically reduce that and get better results. LifeSmiles today gets an average of 90 new patients a month. Remember, we're a 3-doctor practice. We get 90 new patients a month, and we're spending $1,250 a month. That's the only marketing spend we make.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think I'm going to be talking about your case study and your story directly too, because it's just such a wonderful way to explain, how you can break free of this and really take advantage of, what's out there and not just stick to the status quo. Like you said, you signed up for something that maybe you didn't realize. So
yeah,
we'll have that going. And thanks, Gary. I really appreciate it. Can't wait to present as well.
And just to show that this isn't a one-off, once I saw how well, we've been a client for 7 years with Equa. Once I saw how well it was working with us, I started recommending it to our clients, especially our clients that are going out of network, because now we have the source, we have the answer for how to replace the patients we lose and replace the historic flow that has come in. All right, Ryan, you'll get them coming up.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. And I'll put this up here now, but any of our attendees today can schedule a free marketing strategy meeting with Equa, and that link is right there on screen. But Naren, can you make sure we put that in chat so it's easier for people to take action on that link?
Absolutely.
It's a Zoom meeting that will allow Equa to share with you the performance of your website today, show you what you're doing well in website performance, but also what could be done to improve, get you on page 1 and all the things that need to be done to support that. And I remember when I set mine up over 7 years ago, that marketing strategy meeting is probably the most important business meeting I've ever had in my practice. All right, number 8, how do you prevent burnout in the dental field? Oh man, Naren, that's a question that we could do an entire day on, but I'll cover it briefly. I think one of the best ways to prevent burnout is to go out of network, because now your team members feel the same stress that you guys feel. It's not just you, doctor, but your team members feel that as well. They feel like they have to strap roller skates on their feet with the rocket boosters on the back as well. And by the way, do you think it's fun dealing with, how come my insurance doesn't pay this? When your good patient comes in, let's say hypothetically, accidentally, your good patient comes in 5 months and 29 days after their last hygiene appointment, and they're a Delta patient. What's going to happen to that claim? Denied, because they has to have a 6-month wait. But who's the patient mad at when that happens? They're mad at you. They're not mad at Delta. They're mad at you. So I think one of the best ways to prevent burnout is actually create an environment in your practice that is relationship driven, where you're taking care of people who you know, like, and trust, and who know, like, and trust you. Now, there's many other components of that. Another way to prevent burnout is to make your practice the best game in town for employment. Make it the best game. Why would anyone want to work anywhere else? You know, there's been people that have left dentistry and they've gone to work as, as Uber drivers, as Lyft drivers. They've gone to work as Amazon delivery guys. But create an environment in your practice where it's the best game, where you're taking care of people, where you're making a difference in their lives. One of the things I'm passionate about dentistry. The reason I'm passionate about dentistry is we have the ability to change people's lives every day. And it could be something we do clinically. It could be something we do behaviorally. So the best way to create burnout is to create an environment that we attract and keep the best paid people, where we make employment in your office the best game in town. Easier said than done, but that's how. When should I go out of network if I've just bought a practice? This is a delicate question. Because if you're taking over as the practice, the main value, and I'll trust, I think we have Brian Harris coming up talking about some of these details. But when you buy a practice, you're buying a lot of different assets. But perhaps the biggest asset is the patient base. And so you may want to go through at least one recall cycle staying in network. I don't like that business-wise, but you may want to stay in network at least one recall cycle, maybe even two, so you can connect with those patients, so they can get to know you before we start pulling the plug and going out of network. Food for thought. The best protocol to drop Delta and not lose all the Delta patients. The best protocol is to have a heads up conversation with these Delta patients. Nothing's changing today, but effective this date in the future will no longer be contracted with your Delta. The best way is to talk to every one of those Delta patients. So go through at least one recall cycle. I would love to just pull the plug and be done tomorrow, but we're still going to have at least a 90-day wait. Delta has a 90-day notice period. So the best method is to talk to every one of those patients, you or someone from your team. And if we do that through one recall cycle, what I call the heads up conversation, I'm going to give an example in just a minute. And that's the best way to not lose us. The worst thing you can do is just send them a letter. Just send them a letter. You will have much higher attrition. Are there alternatives to collecting a time of service once I resign? Sure, there are. I have a client that was very nervous about collecting a time of service from Delta. Very nervous. And we came up with a plan that their office manager came up with, and I signed off on. She said, Gary, I know our patients. They're blue collar, working class. This is going to be upsetting. They love us, but. And she said, what about if we have them sign a pre-authorization form allowing us to charge their credit card in, say, 3 weeks? By then, they'll have the Delta check. And the office manager's name was Susan. I said, Susan, I wouldn't do that. I don't like that plan because it creates a lot more administration in your practice. But if you think it's better for your patients, you know your patients better than I do. And as long as your team is willing to do the extra work on that, I'll give you a thumbs up. And she said, our team, because they all want to keep as many patients as possible. So that's what they did. The patients signed an authorization on the day of service, authorizing them to charge a card that was then on file 3 weeks later. Now, the after effect of this was that many patients, when presented that option, said, oh, what the heck, just charge my card now. Now, not all of them did. And by the way, they did not have any defaults on those cards they ran 3 weeks later. By then, the patient had the money from Delta, and it was less of a hardship for them. So yes, there is. Not my first choice, but it's possible. Number 12, have you ever advised a dentist not to resign from PPO plans? Yes, 5 times. 5 times in my career, I've thoroughly analyzed the practice and said, don't do this. It's suicide. Don't do this. Why? Because they weren't giving their patients reasons to come to them for their care other than being in network. And every time I did that, I don't like delivering that message. It's a negative message. But every time I've done that, the doctor has looked me right in the eyes and said, this is something I felt, you're right. I agree. And then it's not that you couldn't ever go out of network, but you're not in position right now. What are some things, besides being relationship driven? Maybe you're an office that's known for technology and you bring people in the practice that really want to go to a technology laden practice. Maybe you're an office that just has an incredible team. Most of the time when I told the client not to go out of network, They have all new team members that have only ever worked in PPO practices. They have a hard time with retention. There's a lot of sameness in these. There's no different than going down the street to a big corporate doc in the box. No difference. Those were the circumstances. By the way, over time, 3 of those were able to go out of network. Naren, I think I'm at the end of the slides.
Yes, Gary, you have 3 minutes. Why don't you go through your final slides? So you have 3 minutes to just wrap up.
I've heard you talk about the heads up conversation. Is it necessary to speak to all patients in the PPO plan before resigning? So I'll answer the second part. The answer is no, you don't have to, but you will enhance your results if you talk to as many as possible. Now, what is the heads up conversation? It goes like this. Naren, if you're the patient and I'm the doctor, this could be delivered by the team member as well. It goes like this. Hey, Naren, I want to share a decision we've made in the practice that affects you. Now, nothing's changing today, but effective October 1st, we'll no longer be contracted with your Delta Dental Insurance. And the reason we're doing this is that there's 2 things you can count on our practice: that we're going to deliver the highest quality care, and secondly, that we're going to work hard to make every visit a positive experience. And as we look in the future, we're concerned that the way things are going with Delta, we may not be able to deliver on those 2 promises to you. So we've made the difficult decision to resign so that we can honor those promises to you, to always provide the highest quality care and to make every visit a positive experience. Now, even after October 1st, here's the good news. Nothing's changing today, but even after October 1st, you can still choose our office for your care. Whatever Delta benefits you can use in our office. We'll still file your claims for you like we always have. And we're going to be on your side to help you get every dollar of benefit from Delta. Now I tell you what I want you to do. Naren, it's our fondest hope that you appreciate the way we deliver quality dentistry and work hard to make every visit a positive experience, that you continue to come to our office for your care. Now, as I said before, nothing changing today, but effective October 1st, that will be the case. We'll no longer be contracted with them. I wanted to have a talk with you today. We're going to send you a letter, but I wanted to talk with you today about this so you wouldn't be a surprise after October 1st. There's the heads up conversation right there. Naren, last slide, simply an invitation to any of our attendees. I mentioned my day job is I own a consulting firm. It's called Thriving Practice Academy. We work with practices all over the country to help you develop an ideal practice. Much of our work revolves around helping you reduce insurance. It's not the entirety of our work, but that's a key focal point. We are accepting new clients. By the way, I would be your coach. I don't have junior coaches, associate coaches to hand you off to. You'd be working with me. I hope you'd see that as a good thing. I do have an amazing team that works behind the scenes to support me in our coaching work, and you and your team. But love the opportunity to work with you if that was your wish. If you'd like to learn more, go to that link. Naren, can you put that link in chat?
Absolutely, Gary.
It's a link to my schedule. You'd schedule a Zoom meeting with me where the purpose of that meeting would be for me to learn more about your practice, for you to learn more about our coaching services, to determine if there might be a good fit. I think we've created a really cool format. We do everything digitally. We do everything virtually. It maximizes time, efficiency, and we've got a library of content and a ton of information and support. If you're interested, schedule that meeting. Love the opportunity to talk to you on Zoom. Naren, that's a wrap for me.
Thank you so much. You finished it on time. Really, really appreciate it. So thank you, Gary. Right now, the panel is between myself, Howard, and Brian. So it's the 3 of us. Gary, if you can turn off your camera, Gary, just because that'll be, if you don't mind. Appreciate it. 1 second. So I'm just going to start by introducing the 3 gentlemen here. I'm going to have a quick slide. Myself and the 3 gentlemen, and then we will dive right into the Q&A panel, right into the business panel. So first one is me. Just go to this slide. Yeah, this is me. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. Myself and Ben founded this. Gary and I started podcasting a long time ago. You already heard from Gary. He's Our keynote speaker today, Gary, is also the founder of Thriving Dentist. So I co-host that podcast with him, along with the Less Insurance Dependence podcast. I have been helping doctors with marketing since 2007. So I guess going on 17 years. I'm the founder and CEO of Equa Marketing. My guests today are Brian Hanks. He's an accountant and dental transition expert, certified financial planner. He's with dentalbuyadvocates.com. Brian, do you want to say a word or two?
Excited to be here. Is it the height of arrogance that I should be more intimidated to be a co-panelist with the inventor of Dentaltown, fellow podcaster? I don't know, but yeah, excited to present with you, Naren, and of course with you, Howard.
The honor's all mine, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Looking forward to it. I think this is the first time I'm meeting you, at least in a panel format. So really excited for this. Howard, of course, is a friend. I have been, I've done a few events with him and I've met him. He has been on my podcast. I've been on his. So Howard, welcome. So glad you are here. I know you are a supporter of our community and many of the people here, Ben, Erica, etc. So appreciate your support. So looking forward to having you. I know you have a wisdom of knowledge. You have so much to share. So really, really looking forward to this session. So let's jump right in. Anything you want to add, Howard, as I get ready?
No, just it's an honor to be on the panel. Gary, enjoyed your talk. Brian, I'm a big fan of your work. Naren, we go back a long way. It's exciting to be here. And of course, Erica, she's been a mentor of mine for 2 decades. I can remember her coming to my office when my boys, God, I don't think any of them could drive a car. And now they're all married with kids. So thank you, Erica, for all your mentorship to me over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I think we have an awesome group here, so I'm really excited as well. So thank you.
Howard. And I'll turn off my video. I'll turn off my video, Naren.
Now go ahead. Okay. Anyways, let me jump right in. So the business panel today is about out of network is trending. Is it a good or bad idea for practice owners? So that's the topic today. I'll be hosting it. I have 2 superstars. Of course, Howard is the man. So looking forward to learning from Howard and and of course Brian, having a wonderful, interesting discussion. I hope we have different perspectives, so there's no like one right answer for any of this. So that's the topic. Out of network is trending. Is it good or bad, for practice owners? So I'm going to start off by kicking this off with a question, and I'm going to ask this question of Brian.
Sure.
And then I'll go to Howard. So the first question is, I'm worried about patient attrition when I buy a practice. Should I focus on a fee-for-service model or a PPO model to have more success with patient attrition?
Got it. So I'm buying a practice. I'm worried that I'm going to lose some patients. That's the genesis of the question. And, really, if you listen to Gary's discussion, the last 45 minutes of Gary talking, the essential question is the same, whether you own a practice or you're buying a new one, right? I'm nervous about it. And what I would say is 2 things. Number one, if you're nervous about it, you're smart. So that means you're thinking about this as a business owner who happens to be a dentist, not, and this is what most dentists thought 30, 40, 50 years ago, I'm a dentist who's forced to own a business. That methodology, thinking, that level of thinking, of course, a big difference between those 2. So first, sure, that makes you a smart dentist to be thinking about the patients that are coming into your practice and paying your bills. Okay. The second part of the question is, should I be nervous and do I need to worry about it? I like to think of the answer as uncomplicated. In fact, Howard has a book. The title of the book is what, Howard?
Uncomplicated business.
Uncomplicated business. Exactly. It's not that complicated. If, like Gary was talking about, if you can treat patients like a human being, have normal conversations, avoid jargon in the chair, start an appointment relatively close to on time, have a website that has an address that's easy to find and easy to follow, a decent number of Google reviews, do you need to be nervous? No, you don't, because you're obviously adding value. You've got a team that's trained. But Naren, let's drill down on your specific question. I'm buying a practice. Should I focus on PPO or fee for service? The answer depends, of course, on your goals and where in the country you want to live. Are you rural or are you urban and suburban, all of that. But all other things being equal, I would say trend towards the fee for service if possible, but don't worry too much if you have a mix of PPO fee for service or even a PPO heavy practice, right? You can, over time, you can change the equipment to make it what you want it to be. You can change the layout of your office if you need to. You can blow out walls. You can build things. You can change the paint color. And like Gary demonstrated, chapter and verse through Gary's presentation, you can shift that patient base to be what you want it to be. If you know you want a fee-for-service base, shy in that direction as you're buying a practice. But if you already own a practice, do the things that Gary's talking about. Howard, disagree, agree? What would you add?
Well, I had you on my podcast 3 years ago. I'm a big fan of you.
Thanks.
I think there's not many simple answers, up, down, left, right. Yes, how I'm seeing this right now, and I'll focus on the United States viewers because it's so different around the world. I feel like some countries are ahead, some are behind. Like you take Singapore, they've all consolidated down to just an individual dentist with 0 to no employees. If they have an assistant, it might be their wife who does the front and the back. Their office phone is their iPhone, and they just have no overhead. Those guys can do 300,000 a year and take home 200.
Yep.
America, I got out of school in '87, and it was right in the big practice management insurance after World War II. Wages were frozen, so the unions couldn't get anything. And then the longshoremen said, well, you can't give us wages, give us free dental. And so America's had this insurance tidal wave. That's an undeniable Mack truck that's rolled through this country from 80 to 2025. And all the dental office, you got to remember, you go back to before that, everybody had 1 chair, maybe 2. And then all the consultants at the time were saying, no, we need a hygienist, 1, 2, or 3. So we're in this big manufacturer. I mean, what dentistry looks like in America today would be an amazing thing if you were building cars. I mean, that's what it is. But now, so what's happened? So now what's happened is what is the United States of America? I mean, rural dentists who are at least 1 hour away from an airport that takes off a commercial flight, and by 2 hours away, my God, they can do anything they want. You look at their fees, they round everything out to 500, like crown 1,000, partial 1,500. It's like, do you have any prices that involve a 9, a 7, or an 8? No. So those, I mean, I know a guy that went back to Iowa last year and found he's the only dentist in the county. Well, my God. So then you go to the urban area. And by the way, the DSOs, they've all been on my show and said they have no interest in rural because it's hard to keep a doc in the box. And that's even genetics. They come out of dental school, they're prime age to mate and spread their gametes. And they don't want to go to Eloy with 2,000 people. They want to go to Phoenix in a 4 million metro. I mean, if you're looking for a mate, you're going to go urban. So there's that big demographic. And then if you're, when I say, unlock, get rid of the PPO and that's successful and everything, I see that when you're one of those cooks that could be on the, when they're making the cupcake wars. I mean, you got to be a cupcake maker that's ready to go on the cupcake wars. And if you get a dentist, they're motivated, and they've gone to Pankey and Spear and Dawson and Mish, and they really are a cosmetic dentist or an implantologist or in something. Oh yeah, they can pull that off all day long. But you take some introvert dweeb that just got out of dental school, $500,000 of student loans, and doesn't have the personality and is shy and afraid and has got to learn clinical dentistry. And then they got to learn presenting dentistry and all that skill set. They're not ready for that for years and years and years. And you know that. We talked about it years ago. The biggest practice transitions I've seen fail in my backyard, of a huge one, was in Glendale. No names mentioned. I'm sure Gary knows exactly what I'm talking about. But he bought this big dog implantologist. This guy was seeking 15 implants a month, but he was selling these cases. And this guy goes to, gets his diplomat and thinks he can technically do implants. But I mean, he bought a practice for doing about 1.3 and drove it down to about 600 in the first year. And, so where I would rather go into a practice and say, oh, I can do everything this dentist is doing fillings and crowns, but he didn't do root canals. And I can do some of my root canals. And I where I'd want to buy a practice for $1 where I think I could do $1.50 out of their existing treatment plan. But as far as back to what I'm really excited about now, it was 25 years ago. It seems like it's all over again. You're always looking for that next big thing. I mean, first it was steam engines. They were pumping water out of coal mines, and then they got smaller to get on ships, and it changed shipping. Then they got to America, they needed canals, and then there was the telegraph, telephone, internet. I mean, what is the next big thing? And what was really cool in 1999, in 1994, I watched Amazon go public and AOL come out, and I just kept looking at it like, what is this? And it took me till 1998 to realize, oh my God, this is the next big thing. And I went in full. I was debt free, had $1 million in savings, and by the time I left Dental Town, I was now $1 million in debt, and everybody thought I was insane because it was just too early. It was 5 years before Facebook in 2004, and it was a smash hit. And then since that, I don't have a play in solar or fusion or CRISPR gene editing, but man, this AI, I've been looking at it for a solid, like last time, like 5 years. You know what I mean? I stared at the internet from 94 to 98 before I pulled the plug on Dental Town, got up 99. And finally last year, I looked at this and the nuances like that we talked about. I mean, my gosh, do you realize that like open dental? That's why Jordan Sparks did it. You're in Utah. He tried to print out labels to mail a postcard to his own patients, and Dentrix told him and he saw all these firewalls around it because Jordan's a programmer, and he called him up, and Dentrix told him, well, that's not your data. And he's like, what? It's not my data. Of course it's my data. But anyway, that was the genesis of open dental, and that's why they're the market leader, because they're open. Well, you take QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Online. And right now, we're what we did in our first round with AI, and we just did it, released it internally 2 weeks ago to this day, where we've been out for 25 years, and people go to social media to ask a question, get an answer. Well, we already got 7 million questions and answers for 25 years. We've had magazine articles in Dentistry, Hygiene Town, Ortho Town since 1994. We've had 650 online CE courses. My 1,600 transcripts from Dentistry Uncensored, and we wrap that in one AI bundle. Oh my God. It just changed everything.
Here's what I hear you saying, Howard. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No.
So guys, I want to kind of, sorry for cutting you off, but I just want to kind of stay on track because there's tons of questions from the audience.
But these questions will all be answered by AI within a few months.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to change everything. It's no longer asking, and here's one expert, or so please someone in your Facebook group or Dental Town answers you. Oh, hell no. You've got all the questions, all the data, all the answers. I mean, it's about to turn where a dentist will be able to ask his own website, hey, am I making money on PPOs? And they'll say, well, you're signed up for 13 PPOs. You're losing money on Connecticut General and Blue Cross Blue Shield, blah, blah, blah. What would my prices have to be for me to break? I mean, you'll be able to ask this stuff that before a consultant have to dig through all your data for hours, and you'll be able to ask like a chat GPT for your dental practice, and it'll always tell you the answer instantly. It's going to change everything.
Thank you, Howard. Appreciate it. My next question to you is, let's say there is a brand new practice owner who's coming out. What are the 3 pieces of things you would tell them to do? 1, 2, 3, just point form. I'll start with Howard, then go to Brian.
Well, I love the way Brian says it on his LinkedIn deal, where basically what is your 3 words for it, Brian? You say I mean, I would just say know your numbers. I mean, he's an accountant in the MBA. I mean, know your numbers, know your numbers, know your numbers. And humans are all emotional, and they never know their numbers. They never know their data. If you go into any dental office and look at the report generator, 85% of all the reports have never been ran one time ever. So, if you could just know your numbers, and have intellectual curiosity and just keep doing a deep dive and a deep dig into every number. Assume every number is wrong until you've proven it otherwise.
I love
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, here's the key number that I'm thinking of. The first place my brain went there was 50%. Okay, so Howard talked about that dentist in Glendale. I think I've helped 1,300 dentists buy a practice. I have like 2 or 3 stories like that. So the data that a dentist can fail Sure, there are those stories, and I think those stories make dentists nervous, again, correctly nervous, because it gets them thinking like a business owner, but they're rare. The 50% number that I'm thinking of, Naren, is that's the estimate of the population of the United States that doesn't see a dentist on a regular basis, right? 50%.
They don't even have insurance.
That's right. No insurance, no nothing, right? They just wait till their teeth hurt, and then they go in and have an emergency appointment somewhere to somebody who will see them. So I had a dentist in San Francisco area. It was textbook, Howard. It was the conversation that you probably have a lot. I have it a lot. The dentist saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about living in San Francisco, but man, I did a dentographic search. I looked on Google Maps and I saw that there's 8 dentists in a 3-5 mile radius, whatever it was. I'm nervous." And my response was the 50% number. Okay, you can be nervous. So that assumes that it's a fixed pie. It assumes that there's only X number of patients for this geographic area. And Naren, to your question, what's the top 3 pieces of advice I'd give? Sure, know your numbers. One of your big numbers is half the people in a circle around your practice don't even know you exist. And they don't know why they would come to a dentist, because you haven't made a compelling argument, or you haven't brought your prices down, or they can't find you, or so it's not the dentist next to you that's your biggest competitor. It's the patient who's not coming to see you. So make it easy for that patient to come see you. And you can go multiple different directions. Gary talked about the fee-for-service direction. Let's set ourselves apart. I'm going to be the guy that does 15 implants a month. Like Howard says, the guy in Glendale is killing it. Or, you know what? I'm going to be somebody that, I see kids, or I do sleep sedation, whatever. There are all kinds of different ways you can differentiate yourself. And so what I would tell them is, know your numbers and figure out what it is that's going to make you unique as a dentist. It doesn't have to be the same as everybody else.
And if I could opine about the skill sets, I mean, know your numbers about skill sets. Like they'll be in an office and they'll refer out 4 molar endos a week for the last 5 years, and then they'll take a TMJ course in Key Biscayne, Florida, for 6 weeks, and they haven't had one person say, "I want TMJ, equilibrated, headaches, migraine." It's like, man, when they're asking you for Invisalign 3 times a week, why are you learning implants? I would only learn how to create a supply of where there's demand. And if you want to be a Beverly Hills, Hollywood movie star dentist, I wouldn't live in Kansas. I'd move out to Hollywood. And but man, in the greater fool theory, I mean, look at Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin was the ultimate greater fool theory. I mean, the thing, zero productivity, it has no function, it has no purpose. And the only way you can make money on it is you can find someone crazier than you to buy it. So your practice, I don't care how bad it is, sell it to a greater fool, and then go move west, go move rural, go move where, they're wanting your stuff.
So, Naren, I'm nervous that dentists figure out what your niche is, and they hear clinical. That means a skill set. It means a procedure. It means an ADA code. I mean, it means that, but it means so much more. It could mean which insurance you do or don't take. It could mean that I live in, where'd you say, Howard? I'm the only dentist in the county in Iowa. It could mean I'm the guy that takes the insurance that nobody else wants to take. It could be that I'm open on Saturdays and nobody else is, right? It doesn't necessarily mean ADA code. Although it can.
And it could mean that you just have a damn personality. And I've been in Ahwatukee since '87, and there's only 2 restaurants and me that have been here the whole time, as far as small business. And both of those restaurants, CK's and the Italian restaurant, I mean, you walk in there and the owner's out there and you're shaking your hand, knows the names of your wife and children. And I mean, you go there to see them. And they're still there. That person can do anything. They don't need insurance, PPOs. They can have the highest fees, but it's a very mixed bag with a lot of nuances. So when everybody's saying, one size fits all, I just don't see it.
Thank you. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Brian. So I'll go to the next question, slightly related, but slightly different. DSOs are coming in. A lot of our listeners are private practice owners. If you are trying to protect yourself and hopefully thrive in that environment, again, 2 tips. I'll start with Brian and then I'll go to Howard.
Yeah, 2 tips. Number 1, hallelujah. DSOs are coming. And guess what? They're not going to take over dentistry. It's impossible. It'll never happen. Dentists are way too smart and greedy. But hallelujah, they're coming, because we got 50% of the US population whose teeth are falling out of their head because dentists haven't found a good way to serve that population. DSOs will figure it out, and they'll work with and employ a number of dentists who don't want to figure out how to differentiate themselves. So good for them. Here's the other thing I would tell you is when I go speak at a residency program or a dental school or somewhere where I have a room full of younger dentists, and I ask them, what percentage of dental practices in the US do you think are owned by a DSO? Inevitably, 50%, 40%. Oh, Brian, it's got to be 70% because I'm reading Howard's Magazine, and that's the only article I read is DSO, DSO, DSO. And the data shows it's somewhere between 16 and 19% of adult dental practices in the US are owned by corporate. Okay. And that's bigger than it was 10 years ago. And people are looking at trend lines and they're thinking, oh, it's inevitable. It's going to be car washes. It's going to be, insurance. It's going to be something. And DSOs will take over. It will never happen. Dentists like control too much. They like money too much. And DSOs will become, and they'll be a force forever in the industry. So embrace it, get to know it, but don't worry about it. Just be a good dentist. Do all the things Howard's talking about. Have a personality, have a niche, and you'll be just fine.
Great. Howard?
Well, I would say that I'm a huge fan of DSOs because I think all people do better with competition. When I was a little kid, they wouldn't let Japan and Germany sell their cars in America because they were naughty during World War II. I mean, GM had 50% of the market. Every Saturday, every uncle and cousin, was in their garage trying to fix his piece of crap Ford, Chrysler. And then when the little cars started coming in from Japan and Germany, GM went from 50% of the market to 30%, and they started making good cars. Before DSOs in Phoenix, Arizona, there was nobody open Sunday. If your kid fell off a bicycle and knocked out his front tooth, you could go to a real hospital and a real doctor would see you, but no dentist would see you. As soon as they rolled into Phoenix, and I think it was Ed Silker with Sunshine Dental, we started seeing hours 7 days a week, 7 to 7 days a week. I think Americans do that. Number two, when I got out of school, the only people that give you a job if you want, there was no dentist in my family tree. I couldn't go get a job with my dad or my mom or my uncle, but it was the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, public health. And I am so honored that today, after these kids get out with all these high dental tuitions, they can get a job anywhere by a DSO. And if you're young and hungry, when I got out of school, it took 4 months to build my office. And Ed Silker's hours were from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. And I worked from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week for 4 months. I was doing my whole curriculum at dental school, 50 extractions, 15 crowns every week. And so the fact that they employ people, number three, I've got friends in this city that, got divorced, turned out to be, they were a young mother with a child, and they didn't want to do that 8 to 5. They didn't want to own a dental office. They were trying to raise a family and a kid. And she went and worked for, a DSO in our backyard, and it just saved her life, and it saved her everything. And now that her kid's getting older, she's been there 20 years, and it's just great. Now, as far as my practice, oh my God, I'd want to be in the middle of the DSO deal because every patient that comes in says the same thing. Well, I went in there and they said I had 5 cavities. So I scheduled to go in and have 3, I'm done. And then that dentist isn't there anymore. And then the new dentist said I didn't have 5 cavities. He said I had 6. And then I went in and had him do 3. Then when I came back, now, I mean, it's such a turnover shit show. I mean, I don't want to compete against any of my homies that are, my age or 40 or 50 and diplomats and all motivated. And they're like Superman. I don't want to compete against Superman. I want to compete against a DSO because it's just a bunch of young kids. Almost every kid out of school, if they've been out of school 5 years, they've worked for 5 different DSOs. I mean, they can't keep anybody. And then when they do keep someone, it's because of a contractual threat. Like if you work for us, you can't quit for a year and you got to, so man, that is the competition you could only dream of. And what I love the most about those DSOs, take ClearChoice. When they came into town, when I was telling people about implants, they were looking at you like a deer in the headlights. ClearChoice comes in, starts advertising all over the TV channels, all these 30-minute deals. Talk about a rising tide lifting all boats. Every oral surgeon, periodontist, dentist I know loved ClearChoice because said, my God, did you ever think there'd be a day where they come in and ask you for an all-on-4? Where did they even get this? I mean, so like I say, it's all nuances. It can't be good if it can't be bad. Everything's yin yang. And I think these are exciting times. But again, I will say this. When we see each other a year from today, our jaws will be on the ground to how AI changed everything, just like the internet. I mean, just like the internet. I looked at that thing from 94 to 98 before I finally said, yeah, I think this AOL.com is a little smarter than people think. And that's when I jumped in. And like I say, I was before Facebook, but this AI thing, oh my God. I mean, I just cannot believe. I mean, you can ask it. I mean, I'm sitting here, I've been back to work full time. I mean, every time I ask my Dental Town AI a question, it gives me an answer that's smarter than me. And we're just fine tuning it and getting, you know, we're trying to get it out. April 15th is our goal, just because my team's got to have a goal date. But I think I think when you go buying and selling a practice, I can see Brian within 6 months, he'll have his own AI. It'll go right into their QuickBooks, right into their Dentrix or EagleSoft, whatever. He'll know, and he'll throw that whole practice on a dashboard in about 5 minutes. In fact, Brian, I wish you'd come in and come down and pilot our transaction deal about what data you need. Because these kids don't know what EBITDA is. And then it's confusing whenever you watch Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, the late Charlie Munger, when they're sitting there every year saying, the minute you hear someone say EBITDA, substitute that word for bullshit. And you know, so they're getting all these mixed messages, and it's all the nuances. But again, I think when AI is into your accounting and it's into your practice management software, and then you're talking to a consultant about selling your practice, like Brian or Erica about this, or Gary about, should I take this PPOs? He'll be able to see all 17 of your insurance, all the volumes, all the overheads. I mean, it's going to be crazy, crazy, crazy.
Thank you, Howard. You both have a lot of experience. Again, I'll start with Brian because I only have like less than 20 minutes left. I want to keep it kind of short. So 1 or 2 biggest mistake you see people making, practice owners making, that you think, like, if they just stop doing those things, they would be better off?
Let me think for a second.
Sure.
You want me to go while you're thinking?
Go for it.
Yeah. You know, this pandemic really illuminated 2 very big problems, and the COVID inflation, because of the COVID response, all the printed money around the world, et cetera, the supply chain stuff. But we're seeing massive inflation in wages and supplies. And now you always knew, why does that dentist need 7 employees? I mean, I know dentists doing those numbers with 4 employees, but now that his overhead's gone up from 25% to 32%, I mean, I would say this. I would say that if any dental office has high overhead today, there's not much you do about your supplies. I mean, that's just supply chain issues. But your staff, everyone is overstaffed, and you could get away with it. Before the pandemic, your margins were good, if your volume was good, but now with inflation and wages, it's so glaringly obvious that, and then you just go in there and say, okay, you got 7 people, you need to get rid of these 2. And the dentist just has to work. Every time you go into a dental office, they're always sitting back in the office. Well, the assistant's making the temporary, the hygienist cleaning, you know, work. You need to let go of people and stay in the operatory. You don't need a private office. Superman worked out of a phone booth.
Time out, Howard, because that's so funny. Naren, I literally had the exact same answer. I'm going to give it my version of Howard's answer. Learn how to manage people. Okay. Learn how to be a boss. Learn how to do the basics of managing people. Okay. When you run a practice, you control the addiction to food, clothing, and shelter of people that work for you. All right. It's a big deal. And and to be fair to dentists, no one teaches how to manage other people. Right. I did a top 10 MBA school in the world. You'd think a management business administration degree. Nobody taught me how to give feedback to an employee, talk to somebody about body odor. What if someone's late to work? How somebody asks for a raise? You know, learn how to manage people, and you will be in the top 1% of dentists, guaranteed, because you'll be able to do the things that Howard's talking about. You'll be able to manage overhead. You'll be able to ask for and delegate more. You'll be able to praise when it's appropriate, ask for better performance, as we all should, all of the time. So Naren, the number 1 mistake, I think, is that dentists don't learn how to manage people and ask for and get the best performance from their staff.
Well,
perfect. Thank you. Howard, I heard you say that, you know what, unless you have more skills and you're more experienced, you know, being trying to be a fee-for-service practice might be challenging. Definitely not for that introvert young dentist. So let's say somebody is self-aware and says, you know what, I'm not ready yet. I'm not going down that path yet. I'm going to, be a PPO practice. Any tips you would tell them, like one or two things you would tell them?
Yeah, I would first just try to be a great dentist. I mean, look at cupcake wars. I mean, these people lose their mind over a cupcake, and you're talking about somebody's tooth that's non-replaceable. And I just call bullshit all day long, these young dentists. A lot of them are just lazy. Like they'll say to me, like during the pandemic, well, I graduated from Glendale and AT still, and during the pandemic, I didn't even get to see any pedo patients. I didn't even do a pulpotomy. And I'll say, okay, well, there's a Medicaid pediatric clinic in downtown Phoenix. I know the owner, and man, you could work. You're not working Saturdays. You can work a 12-hour shift on Saturday. You'll do pulpotomies and chrome steel crowns all day, every day. And they're like, well, I don't want to work in a Medicaid practice. It's like, it's a human with a toothache. You're a dentist. You don't know how. People in there know how. And you're already looking at this baby girl human and saying, you don't want to do a Medicaid practice? I mean, just get hungry. And that's why, when you go back to McDonald's, Roy Kroc, they didn't make the movie because it's politically incorrect, but I knew Ray Kroc. My dad owned 9 Sonic Drive-ins. I met him at a hamburger convention, and they only sold you one location, and you had to be married with kids and go to church on Sunday because you said an employer owned your food, shelter, and clothing addiction. Well, if you got a stay-home wife and kids, you got to bring home worms every night to feed the babies. And Ray Kroc owned them. And then Chick-fil-A, which McDonald's doing 3 million store, they blew them away 5 million. They're actually closed on the Sabbath. Same thing. One location, you got me. And it's the same thing with those kids. I had 4 boys. Every one of them was a wild, crazy man. They all took after their mother, just completely nuts and insane. And then one by one, they got married. They dropped a baby. First one had 4, 2 of them have 2. The minute they dropped the baby, they got their why. They just totally focus. And I would say when these dentists come out of school and their dad paid for their dental school and their dad paid for their car and they got daddy's little credit card, they're useless and they're just playing. But as soon as they get married, as soon as they drop a baby calf, they're totally focused, and then go in there and learn your product. I would learn the dentistry first. I got my FAGD, my MAGD, my diplomat and implants, all that stuff. Try to figure out the dentistry is really, really hard. And it's so hard now, you can't, look at implants. Just bone grafting, you'd have to have a PhD. To do bone grafting and implants, you don't have time to learn cosmetics and Invisalign and bleaching, bonding, veneers. This shit, look at endo. Endo alone is mind-blowing. I would just, I'm old-fashioned. I think dentistry started with a toothache. I'm coming to you, my tooth hurts. You got to either pull it, bone graft it, place an implant in a crown, or you got to do a root canal, billet, and crown. And I would work on just treating a damn toothache. Yeah, it all sounds nice if everybody's getting their teeth cleaned every 3 to 6 months, but you know what? You don't even have data that proves a 6-month cleaning works. Rolla Christian's a hygienist, the PhD. She said you could only prove that a cleaning works if it's on a 3-month recall. At 6-month recall, there's no data. So I would get all the superfluous stuff out of your head and say the real market in dentistry is people come in and I hurt. And if you can't get me out of pain, if you can't pull that tooth or do a root canal, billet, and crown, you're not a real doctor. And just get good at your dentistry, be non-judgmental, get to like patients. Everybody is good. Everybody is bad. I don't care how bad someone is. Their mama loves them. And when they come in, they got a toothache and you got to show empathy. And I'm not responsible. They come in your office holding a Mountain Dew, eating a Twix bar. They don't need a lecture, but I didn't go to dental school for free. Good shit's expensive. I just picked up a Toyota Tundra. They wanted $85,000 for it. That's a pretty damn good
baseline
truck.
model too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good truck. They got $85,000 out of me. And what am I asking you for? A root canal, billet, and crown. What am I asking you for? $3,000? If you want to go sit in your Toyota Tundra with a toothache, knock yourself out. But and then take the credit cards, all that stuff. But I think so much of it is just the dentist is the product. And if the dentist isn't the product, he's a cog in a machine, he needs to go sit in the mill until he learns his skills and learns his personality and blossoms. And some people just need a little time for that.
Brian, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. Howard talked about that young dentist, who probably needs to be PPO till he gets his wings, so to speak. I'm going to ask you the other question. What if you are a mature dentist, you have these skills, these experiences, and you are ready to start dropping PPO plans and attracting those patients paying full fee, right? What would you tell them?
Well, pretty basic. So 4 things. Number 1, call Gary. Call Gary Takis. Just call Gary. Okay. If you're waiting for Gary to call you back, then do 3 other things. Number 1, start your appointments on time. If your appointments aren't starting on time, the patient's already pissed off before they sit in your chair. They're not excited to see you anyway. Now I'm 15, 20, 25 minutes late for my appointment that you texted me about 3 times for, and now my appointment's late. Why? Number 2, when you answer the freaking phone. Okay. If the phone's not getting answered, again, patients are, the tire store's picking up the phone. The flower shop's picking up the phone. You're kidding, 2 p.m. on a Thursday and the dentist's not picking up the phone, or someone in the staff's not picking up the phone. I live in South Salt Lake, Utah. There are dentists coming out of my ears. In the city I live in is Draper. There are 12 dentists in a 2-mile radius of my house. One time I picked up the phone and I called all 12 of them at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Howard, how many dentist office do you think picked up the phone of the 12?
None.
No. 5
5
did.
out of 12.
And I had 2 questions for the offices. Do you have a membership plan? Yes or no? That was it. Yes or no, do you have a membership plan? And how soon can I get in for a cleaning? And guess how many of the 5 could answer that question? 0.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's number 2. Number 3, if I'm sitting in your chair and you use dental terminology, I'm tuned out and I don't trust you anymore. If you use the word caries, I don't know what you mean. Okay. Just speak plain English to me. I'm not a dentist. I'm like Gary. I've never gone to dental school. I don't know what the Krebs cycle is. I actually do know what the Krebs cycle is, but like, just speak plain English to me. What is a cavity? How does that happen?
Does that mean Brian will quit using the word EBITDA?
Exactly. Yes. By the way, I try not to, and then I catch myself, and I'm like most dentists. But so, Naren, it's very simple. I mean, it's a business, right? I go to the tire store, I go on a tire. If I go to an oil change store, I get an oil change. I go to the dentist, I want my appointment to start relatively close to on time. I want you to speak plain English to me. And when I call to set up my appointment, I want somebody to pick up the phone during business hours. Pretty simple.
Thank you. I'm about to bring this to a close. There's 7 minutes left. Final thoughts, Brian. I'll start with you. Tell us a bit about yourself. I know you kind of said hello, but just a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yeah, what I do
how
is
you can help and how people can
I'm
contact
most
you.
known for this. I don't know if it comes backwards on the screen or not, but How to Buy a Dental Practice is what I'm most known for. This is a book. It's out on Amazon. It seems to resonate with people because, by the way, what I did is I wrote it and I showed it to my mom, and I was like, okay, Mom, does this make sense to you? And she highlighted about 2/3 of the book and said, I don't know what you mean by this. So I tried to speak plain English, and Howard, I did a find and replace in Microsoft Word on the phrase EBITDA, and I took it out of the book. I think I put it in there once just so I could explain it. But so what I do is I help buyers of dental practices. I'm a trained accountant. So I'm the CPA on your deal. You hire me, you hire a lawyer, and we help you buy a dental practice. And we get you into ownership. And we help several hundred dentists a year, and we try to do a really good job. I like to joke, we're a specialist for the process of buying a dental practice. We're not a broker, so we don't help sellers. We can do valuations. We let the brokers do their thing, but we just help buyers through the process on the accounting and the consulting side. So that's who I am.
Perfect. And how do people get a hold of you, Brian? We'll put a link, but just you can say it.
Yeah, dentalbuyeradvocates.com is the link. Type my name, Brian Hanks, into Amazon. You'll see the book. And I do have a podcast too. Now, I'm not as ambitious as Gary and Howard. I didn't want a job, but buying a dental practice is a moment in time. I was watching Netflix one day and it occurred to, I was watching 24 with Jack Bauer. Everybody's watched that, and you can't stop because the episodes just keep going. And it occurred to me, dentists, when they're buying a practice, they're at a moment in time in their career, they have a series of questions, and it's the same questions every time. So I just released all the podcasts on the process of buying a dental practice. You can binge them in seasons. The name of the podcast is Practice Purchased. Practice Purchased.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. We'll put all of that in the links. Howard, same question. Let's wrap it up. Final thoughts. How can people get hold of you? What are you up to these days?
Well, I did retire. I sold my dental office, land and building. I sold both my homes. I got a nice little Airbnb in downtown Phoenix and just started playing. But the emails from the dentist just kept coming and coming and coming. And that's why after, I haven't lectured for 4 years, I completely retired. And now I'm starting to get back into it because every email is saying they just got out of dental school. They're $500,000 student loans. They're working for a DSO. They freaking hate it. They're miserable. They're not happy. And so I started coming back instead of doing 16 episodes a month. I've been doing like one every other week, but it's all focused on just these kids. And what I tell these kids is, look, you got a bad attitude. I mean, you really got a lot of bad attitude. I mean, you live in the richest country in the world. The average dentist income is top 10% income. So you're in the top 10% income of the richest dentists in the world. I mean, you don't know dentistry. You got a chance in these DSOs to learn clinical dentistry. Here's my buddy, Rick Workman, that owns 1,000 offices. Really? And you can't learn anything about the business of dentistry working for a guy that owns 1,000 dental offices when most dentists can't even manage their own dental office. And
Hey,
then
Howard, it's 1,700.
Yeah, 70. And then they'll say, well, I don't like Stephen Thorne saying about this or that. It's like, Stephen, he's a legend. I mean, anybody could learn from that guy. But what I do tell him, I want to give him succinct advice. Find out who you want to be when you get bigger. Do you want to be an implantologist? Well, then why don't you go try to buy an office of an implantologist? The one thing I don't like about the practice transition deal is these associates will go get a job, and the dentist will say, well, you're not going to work for me unless we have a contract. You're going to buy the practice. It's like, I'm sorry, is that how dating worked? I don't remember showing up on the first date and telling my baby mama, okay, let me tell you something. If you're going to date me, I need a contract. We're going to get married. I mean, I would go date dentist until you find someone you want to be like, and then go work for that person. And sometimes you'll say, yeah, but he only wants to pay me 25% of collection. Well, you paid dental school $500,000 in student loans and you're miserable. And now you're not going to go work for who you wanted to be when you get big and date him and work with it. And 6 months into it, then you talk to Brian, you say, Brian, I've been dating this guy for 6 months, and I think I'd really like to.
I think Howard broke the internet.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Be the transition I'd like to buy into this practice, but just get it right. And that's why I love it. And that's what they need. They just need a positive attitude. They got all the resources. Just get a good attitude and be hungry, work. And if you're lazy, marry a stay-home woman with 7 kids who lives in a shoe, and all of a sudden you'll do 12-hour days, 7 days a week.
So thank you so much, Howard. Thank you so much, Brian. Really, really appreciate it. Of course, Howard is a legend. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows Dental Town. So I'm pretty sure people can find Howard. And thank you, Brian, for your wisdom and everything you shared today. I think you bring a lot to the table. So really appreciate you as well.
I'll disagree with Howard more often next time. So yeah,
it'll be more fun. So thank you, Howard, and thank you, Brian. So we are going to go into break. We have a 10-minute break. I'm going to let Ben take over and get everybody ready. So those who want to kind of get a cup of tea or coffee or just take a break, just go for it. 10 minutes. So we'll be back at 1:45 Eastern time. So Ben, if you don't mind, get everybody in, your panelists, and start setting up. But in the meantime, I just want Gary to kind of share his wisdom and experience on what just happened. Do you agree, Gary? Do you like what you heard?
God, that was amazing. I was just glued to the screen here. Brian, first of all, thank you for kind words, and Howard, it's always great to see you. Howard and I have known each other forever. And Brian, I was going to comment on your last comment,
Sure.
last question about what are some things a dentist can do, to be remarkable in the eyes of the patients. Howard and I remember a colleague of ours here in Phoenix, the late Dr. Omer Reed. Brian, you may remember his name.
I know the name. Yep.
But Dr. Reed was one of my original mentors. And Dr. Reed wanted to be known by his patients. By the way, he had $1 million practice when in the back of dental economics, there's someone that wrote a book about how to have the $100,000 practice.
Yeah.
So I think if they wrote a book about how to have a $100,000 practice, that was like the benchmark. That was like the holy grail. Well, Omer had $1 million practice at that point. But Omer wanted to be known by his patients. Wait for it. the painless on-time dentist.
Mm.
So your comment about being on time
Yep.
triggered that memory for me.
Yeah.
And painless, you think there might be any draw in that?
That's right. I love it. Yeah. It's, we get dentistry is an amazing career. You're helping people. You get a lot more control than you do in the world of medicine. Frankly, you can make a lot more money, but that's not why most dentists get into it. And yeah, the ability to help someone feel better and start an appointment on time, what could be better? But we make it so complicated, Gary, and it doesn't need to be.
Doesn't need to be. Hey, I want to tell a Howard Friend story. So when we started the Thriving Dentist Show, we did an interview format. So I invited Howard to be on the Thriving Dentist Show. And I said, Howard, each episode is about 50 minutes, something less than an hour. I think of it as a commuter podcast. Half of it in the morning you'll listen to, half of it on the way home. Howard said, great, I'm going to talk about 4 things. And anyway, that one episode became 4 episodes.
Yeah, sure.
But I absolutely treasure Howard's mind. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but he always challenges me to think about things differently, to look at things differently. You all learned to that, and something I knew was that he came from an entrepreneurial family where his father owned fast food restaurants. And he's always looked at things differently. And I always treasured the way Howard looks at things. And I'm excited to see him semi-unretiring. Is that what I heard? Did you guys hear semi-unretiring? Because he contributes so much to our amazing profession. And I would encourage anybody to pay attention because he'll get you to think about things a little bit differently.
Yes, I think I learned a bunch too. It's pretty interesting, obviously, Ben, any comments? Morgan, Erica, and Trisina, welcome. I know in 8 minutes, we'll start with the next panel, the clinical panel. So maybe you can say hello and any comments on what we just heard.
I would like to mention that Howard and I are going to be doing, I believe, his first event out of retirement in October. So we'll be doing that at the Disneyland Hotel. And so we're really looking forward to that event. We'll start promoting it here pretty soon.
That's
Erica,
awesome.
what's the focus of the event?
It's going to be practice management, coding and billing is what I'm going to talk about, and then Howard's going to talk about the new trends in practice management, incorporating AI into practice management. I'm pretty sure it's going to sound better on the flyer or in the advertising, but that's the gist of it right now.
Oh man, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
all you need to know is that Erica and Howard are going to be speaking, and that's good enough for people to sign up and go.
You don't need to know what the event is called.
There's your flyer. There's your flyer.
Yeah, we're still working on it. I'm really excited, but yeah,
That's awesome.
We're really, it's the first time we get to share the stage, but we've had a lot of behind the scene conversations as friends, but the first time we're actually going to share a stage. So I'm really excited.
Awesome. So any other comments, Gary, before I give it over to Ben to start?
And I'm glad I have an opportunity to follow up on Brian and Howard's segment. And, something that perhaps goes unsaid, but I want to make sure you hear it. And that's that going fee for service isn't for everybody. There's lots of different flavors. And I think the key is finding the flavor that suits you. Be yourself. If your people skills aren't just not there, in terms of your personality, you're more of an introvert than extrovert, which is many dentists, then maybe the fee for service model isn't the right one for you. And I don't mean that from a judgmental standpoint. There's lots of different flavors, lots of different models. Find the one that works best for you. But if you do want to go that way, I think there's a lot of reward, emotional reward, not only financial reward. I mean, it's amazing the benefits. Brian, as an accountant, when you stop giving 45 to 50% to the fat cats at Delta, amazing things happen with the practice economics. We've never talked about this, but would you agree?
100%. Oh yeah, all day, every day. The satisfaction of the dentist goes up. The ability to manage staff well, patient satisfaction goes up. But what's interesting, Gary, to me, it's still curious to me, is it chicken or egg, right? Is it going fee for service that forces the mindset to be business oriented and staff and patient oriented? Or am I business and staff and patient oriented first, and then I realize the insurance doesn't align with me? I think the answer is probably both, and it's probably both circumstances, but I've often wondered, is it chicken or egg, right? Which happens first?
I actually think you could answer the question either way.
Yeah.
Accurately answer, as you said, you could accurately answer it anyway. Am I driven toward that because it doesn't meet the model in my head, the vision I have for my practice? That was the case with us. It didn't meet our vision. And so we said, well, let's find the pathway, let's find the practice format that meets our vision. But it could also be that you want to develop the skills and you want to be able to succeed in that environment. So the carrot of going fee for service allows you to improve and strengthen the areas that you need to improve on to make it work. But I do want to, make the comment that no judgment. There's many different practice models, and they all can be done successfully. Recently I'll close on this comment, Aaron. I recently had a very personal conversation with a doctor in Alabama, and he said, "Gary, I am really torn." He said, I totally understand the economics of going fee for service. I understand. I get it. And he said, I actually have some business training as an MBA. He said, I get it, but I also want to be of service to people in need in my community. Brian, can you understand that tug and that conflict?
Yeah, it's here's how I would repeat what you said. You tell me if I'm catching the spirit of the comment. There's so much pressure to succeed financially in dentistry that there's an upward pressure towards high-end procedures that really are affordable by only a certain segment of the population in a lot of cases, especially if you're fee for service. And so dentists find themselves with a lot of Teslas, Land Rovers, et cetera, in the parking lot, and they think to themselves, I bet you there's a 6-year-old little girl somewhere who's in a foster home or on Medicaid somewhere whose teeth hurt. I wish I could help that person. Is that the spirit of what you're saying?
Exactly the spirit of his question. So I said to him, I said, those are not mutually exclusive. And we were in a Zoom call, and his eyes got really big, and his eyes were telling me, I'm confused. I said, well, they're not mutually exclusive, because, think about this. I said, you can't give from an empty wagon. And if you have the resources now in your practice, because of going fee for service, you have better economics, you can choose to help people. You can choose to, if you want to adopt a family and provide their dental care, once you're on a network, you can do whatever you want with the fees. You can waive them all. You can waive co-payments. You can charge them nothing. And so now you can choose your charity, choose your charities. We have a wonderful client that adopted a convent near his practice. He was already taking care of one of the sisters, and she happened to come from a family of means. And so she was able to come to the practice, fee for service practice. But they decided after they went fee for service to adopt the now 14 sisters in the convent and just take care of them at no fee. And my client said, well, Gary, I did have ulterior motives. And I said, well, what was that? He said, well, it's my backup plan to get into heaven. And the sister, the first patient, when he presented the idea that he wanted to take care of him, and he told that story to the sister, and he said, I hope I don't need it, but I mean, it can't hurt, right? And the sister said, well, son, so the nun was older, said, well, son, I'm probably going to get there first. I'll be sure to put in a good word for you. And it was, I shared that story with the doctor in Alabama. And I think he really got that the idea of being of service to people and also being financially successful are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
So maybe that's a good way to put a ribbon on
Thank you.
My segment.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you, Brian. I think the three of us, Gary, myself, and Brian, you're going to turn off our cameras. Ben, take it away. Thank you so much, Morgan and Tessina, and of course, Erica, for everything you do for the Insurance Untangled community. I want to publicly thank you. You are awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. And Ben, take it away.
Excellent. Well, thank you there, Naren, and thank you, Gary, Brian, and Howard. What a great webinar so far. So today we are sort of at a phase in the webinar today where we have the privilege and honor to hear from Erica, Tessina, and Morgan. My name is Ben Tuyane. I'm probably the least qualified in terms of this particular panel. This is the insurance panel, and we're going to talk all things insurance here for a second. But as you can see with sort of the title is, we're going to talk about billing and fixing the bloody prophy practice, which is an area that, so I think that's a phrase that Erica coined. But it's an area that Erica, Tessina, and Morgan know very well in terms of billing, coding, how to fix the bloody prophy palace in terms of billing and income, and how that kind of ties into the success of the practice. And so we'll do some brief intros. My name is Ben Tuine. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Insurance Untangled podcast with Naren. And so hopefully in the near future, as we sort of develop more webinars related to insurance-related questions, the feedback from the audience and the attendees today will sort of help us with the insurance focus. So for those of you that are coming from the last webinar, thanks for your feedback. A lot of the questions that we're going to go through today are from that webinar. So that's me. There's Erica. Of course, you've heard from her. And I think one of the biggest compliments that Erica got today was that you're one of Howard's mentors, the famous Dr. Howard Ferran, which is probably all we need to say about your background in terms of your expertise. But check her out at visit the dentalbillingcoach.com to learn more, or Hidden Dental Profits. And Erica, you're welcome to put your website directly in the chat there. That'd be great for the listeners to have follow-up questions for you. Tessina is sort of the queen of advocacy in dentistry in terms of how she uses the insurance commissioners. She was featured in Dental Economics several years ago on how she single-handedly brought several insurance companies to their knees. One person, one practice, and she's been amazing at doing this and helping other practices successfully utilize the insurance commissioner. So thank you, Gary, for bringing that up. What Gary mentioned about that approach is totally spot on. For those of you that want to learn more about how to use government agencies effectively, like many of us contact the insurance commissioners and we get shot down, mainly because of the angle in which we're approaching them, which hopefully Tessina will have time to go through with you today. Morgan is another fantastic expert as it pertains to all things insurance. So she owns her own company and helps dental practices with their revenue cycle management and insurance claim submission and all that. So the combination of knowledge and expertise from these three ladies is going to be impressive. So put your questions in the chat box. There are questions from the registration that we'll try to get to. But let's go ahead and kickstart it first with sort of a round robin approach. We're going to start with Erica and ask you, Tessina, and then Morgan separate questions. But as you give answers, feel free to, if the question is not directly to you and you have an opinion, feel free to just chime in and give us as much educational feedback as possible. So Erica, here we go. You ready?
Ready.
So question number one are about blind spots as it pertains to coding and billing. So what are some of the common blind spots you see when it comes to hygiene billing? And then how can we avoid those blind spots once we identify them?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I am honored to be here and share this section with Morgan and with Tessina. I mean, I've learned a lot from both of these ladies as well. And I think we all continue to learn from each other. So thank you for having me on the webinar. So to answer that question about blind spots, I think the biggest blind spot, particularly with hygiene, is just not understanding how your hygiene department is performing. I think understanding your perio performance percentage or your hygiene performance percentage is crucial, vital for an office to understand so that you know how well you are treating the perio in your office. And that to me is the biggest blind spot, Ben. I mean, honestly, just not knowing your numbers, not knowing how to interpret what your reports are really telling you is another blind spot.
Yeah, I often hear these days there's a struggle for doctors to find hygienists, and then as well as being able to afford the ones that they do hire. Is there a correlation between so the treatment, from what I, not being a clinician myself, what I've always been told is that when it comes to hygiene, the treatment is being done, but it's not being documented or reported to insurance. So therefore, there's a loss of income, right? I guess that's a question for all three, that if all three of you can chime in on that, perhaps maybe you can start with you, Erica, and then go to Tessina and Morgan afterwards.
Yes. So what we've seen when we're going through and we're working with the client to optimize their billing department, what we see is that a bloody prophy is documented. And when we have a conversation with a hygienist or a doctor, for that matter, some doctors are doing their own hygiene because they can't find the hygienist. But what we see documented and what we're able to bill for is a prophy, where if we talk to the hygienist or the provider and ask them, did you go subgingival during your prophy? And was there bleeding in 30% or more of the mouth? The answer is yes. So that coding opportunity was billing for, or the loss there was billing for gingivitis cleaning. And the reimbursement for the gingivitis cleaning in most cases is higher, with the exception of the Mafia, AKA Delta. They tend to pay less than a prophy for the gingivitis cleaning. And Tessina and I have had conversations about that, you know, to use what she has in her arsenal to fight back a little bit about that. But yeah, so I think documentation needs to clearly define what we're really doing, and we need to make sure that we understand what these the differences between, you know, a bloody prophy or a gingivitis cleaning, and so that we can better code and describe what we're doing to the insurance companies. Because if we're telling the insurance companies that we're doing prophies all the time, but it's truly a gingivitis cleaning, we're not going to be able to get that higher reimbursement for the offices that decide to stay in network.
Excellent. Tessina, comments?
Yes, definitely. Several. So it's about training the insurance. Like you said, Erica, if we're not documenting properly and we're not billing the insurance company for what we're doing, the insurance company thinks that those services don't need to be done, or it's not a more involved service, so the fee is lower. All of these things, if you're unhappy about the fee from Delta Dental for the SRP or for the gingivitis cleaning, then let's fight that. But bill for the gingivitis, because what ground do we have to stand on if we're not even billing for it? They're saying back to you, like, well, you don't bill for that code. You're obviously not using it. Why would you need an increased fee on it? So there's got to be a starting ground, and that starting ground is properly documenting, sorry, and then billing the insurance company and fighting the insurance company for the services that need to be done. We're not doing the patients or our insurance or office any favors by trying to bill it at a lesser service or a different service. It never ends well.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback, Morgan.
Oh my gosh.
Comments?
No, they pretty much took it out of the park. I would say learning, kind of like what Erica said, but learning how to code and documenting it will help your reimbursement. I mean, for example, I'm working with an office right now where they don't have a perio program. And the hygienist, she just bills out prophies. And if patients do have perio disease, she has them come sooner, obviously, but she's still billing out the prophy. And I think because I don't know whether they're just not interested in having a perio program, or I'm trying to get to the bottom of it without being like micromanaging, you know. But knowing, you know, the different levels of periodontal disease and how to do, you know, we're making sure we're getting the 6-point perio charts and we're documenting bleeding intercession. And if you don't know how to do it the right way, if you don't have your coding book and we're not getting the right documentation, it is, like they said, it's a loss of potential revenue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate the three of your feedback. So the last thing that you mentioned there is potential loss in revenue. So what I've seen in a lot of dental practices, and maybe many of you have seen this too, is that standard hygiene days are what, 600 to $1,000 in terms of production. But when there's a perio program and the perio codes are being reported, you do see a different in dynamics where a lot of hygienists are producing 1,500 to 2,500 a day. And when you look at that from the perspective of the affordability component of the hygiene wages, when you're banging on all cylinders as it pertains to the perio performance, like there's a question that came in about how to bill for more aggressive hygiene protocols, which I think is what we're talking about now. You see a big difference in the dynamics of the hygiene income for the practice and the ability to compete on the current wages that are out there for hygiene, right? If you don't mind, ladies, I just want to focus on this a little bit more and maybe have a few questions. So Erica, you mentioned the gingivitis cleaning, right? That's the code D4346. So this is a question for all three. What is that code for? Maybe we'll have Morgan explain what the code definition is for 4346. You don't have to go into too much detail, but just high level, what is that code? And then secondly, why is it not being billed? And then the third follow-up to that is how do you encourage more practices to focus on that?
So from what I've seen with my hygienist notes, I have a hygienist who does them all the time. And the code is scaling in presence of inflammation. So when the inflammation is a little bit more than just a regular prophy, but it's like the middle ground. The patient doesn't quite qualify for the regular prophy, but we're not quite there meeting the criteria for SRP. That's what I understand to be the 4346. And if Erica wants to, sorry to put you on the spot, but
no, that's fine. So I think this code came out. This is the second time that the ADA has introduced this procedure. A similar code was, I think, back in the 90s or the 80s, and then it was discontinued, and then they brought it back in 2015 or 16. Yeah. And the purpose of this code is to better describe the type of cleaning that we're doing. So before this code was reintroduced, we were classifying, I think most consultants were classifying it as a difficult prophy. So you would have a regular prophy, a difficult prophy, and then perio. So now what they've done with this code, D4346, is they've, as Jen says, Jen is our hygiene coach, like Jen says, it's a bridge between the prophy and a perio patient, and it better describes what we are doing when we are treating gingivitis, but the patient isn't necessarily a full perio patient. There's no bone loss, there's no attachment loss, but there is red puffy gums, there's bleeding throughout in 30% or more of the mouth. So that's what this code is filling in for. And to answer the other question you asked, Ben, about like why are offices not using it? Because there's no awareness. A lot of offices, as we meet with them, because we meet with multiple offices every day, we take a look at their coding utilization, and 4346 rarely ever makes it to the game. It's just put on the bench, never gets put into the game. And I think it's because there is so much mystery around it. And if we could help our hygienists to understand how to document the documentation that needs to be present in order to properly bill this code, and what is needed in order to get paid for this code, I think that we would see an increase in this utilization, but also, like I mentioned earlier, we get paid more for this. And I'm not trying to hijack the conversation, but I just want to add one more point. I had the pleasure of speaking to a room of a couple hundred hygienists back in November of 2022. And I surveyed the room, and I asked the hygienists in the room, how many of you go subgingival during a prophy with bleeding present? And every hand in the room went up. And then the follow-up question was, how many of you have documented that as a bloody prophy? And again, every hand in the room went up. And this is a room full of hygienists. So that just goes to show you that I don't think it's being used, not because there's resistance. I think it's not being used because there's lack of education around it.
Yeah, the data that we see is that more than half of the 1110s are bloody prophies. And which means that over half of the 1110s, D1110, which is the prophy code, are candidates for the D4346, higher reimbursement. So follow-up question to this is, the common complaint that I hear in the industry is, well, I don't use that code because it's not covered by insurance. What is your response to that question?
Oh, sorry, Tessina, you can go.
It's definitely a covered code.
Oh yeah. I think I've come across one insurance where that specific code just wasn't covered, or it was just one plan. But other than that, I'm always getting payments for our 4346 codes.
Yeah. And since when do we let a non-covered code mean that all of a sudden we don't bill for it?
Exactly.
I think the concern is so I'm going to be the devil's advocate, and that way, you know, I'm sort of representing the listeners in terms of the way of thinking with the line of questions that they've submitted. Is what the thought process is well, we can submit it, but it gets downgraded to a prophy anyway, and then it shows that the patient owes out of pocket. So when the patient is expecting to come in for a quote unquote free cleaning, and they're surprised by having to pay money out of pocket, we're just not going to use that code. We're just going to report it as a prophy to insurance, right? What is your feedback regarding that concern?
Yes, do you want to take the lead, or do you want me? Because we had a whole conversation about I used the word pre-authorization and triggered you. And so, I mean, you can tell me. I'll let you go first. How about that?
So funny. So yes, if it is getting downgraded, or if it's not covered, which rarely happens, you have several options. But you're saying you're finding this after the fact. Why are we responding after? Why aren't we prepared ahead of time? So my first and foremost is, where's your insurance verification? Where's your breakdown of benefits, where you know your patient's plan, you know what to expect, and you know how to prepare and present that information to the patient in a way that they will accept it, not based on fees, but based on what is needed for their oral health. Let them take that responsibility for where they're at with their oral health and what it takes to get them healthier. Right, Erica?
I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. And I think to add to that, 100%, when we're thinking about treatment of a patient and we're talking about co-payments, I think that we're allowing the patient to dictate the level of care that, and the insurance for that matter, because it's not covered at 100%. Is a crown covered at 100%? And we just choose to do a filling because we don't want to have to present the copayment for the crown to the patient. It's the same concept. We have to get comfortable with letting the patient know, and as Jen says, take responsibility for their current condition, you know, their current oral health condition, explaining to the patient that, you know, they need a different type of cleaning, and then we can have somebody in the front or on the admin team explain how the insurance is going to work for this different type of cleaning, because we need the patient's gums are bleeding, and here's what I'm seeing in the mouth, and so I think taking that approach rather than saying, well, it's not covered at 100%, so we just bill for a prophy. That's a cop-out. I mean, I really feel that we have to get better at preparing for the day. We have to get better at having these financial conversations with patients and letting them know that, I know you've been coming in for regular cleaning, but we've been seeing some signs and symptoms of gingivitis. You now need a different type of cleaning. You know, we can give them a chance to correct that, give them some good oral health instructions and send them on their way, but let them know, if you come back and these signs and symptoms are still here, we're going to have to do that other cleaning. So it doesn't have to be so abrupt, but we do have to start, as Tessina said, incorporating these questions onto your breakdown of benefits so that we're better prepared. I'm a huge advocate of getting ahead of the insurance with asking the right questions on the breakdown of benefits. And that could be a whole other topic. But but I mean, and I don't know. It's just, I think there's a domino effect when it comes to incorporating this. But I think the first thing around the mindset of infusing this code into a practice is it's not always going to be covered at 100%. And we have to be comfortable with letting the patient know that, you know, you need a different type of cleaning, and here's how your insurance is going to help you out with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if we want more insurances to cover it and cover it at better rates, we have to build the code.
There you go.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent.
And I think by having those conversations, doing your due diligence and having those open conversations with the patients, it builds trust, because I feel like that's one of the things that makes a practice thrive is you have a good relationship with your patients. They trust you, you know, hey, we did the due diligence. We called your insurance. We got your plans. We asked them all the questions. We did this for you because it's a courtesy. And
Yeah.
I think it builds, you know, their trust when it's, oh, wow, they really went above and beyond to get this information before I came in. We're talking about it. We're having these open conversations. It builds the trust with the patients.
Excellent. Excellent. And let's have a follow-up with that. Well, one thing that I'll mention before we move on to the next code, which is just prep your minds. We're going to talk about 4341, the 1 to 3 teeth in combination. Well, 4341 for an 1110 patient, a patient that is mostly 1110. So prepare your minds to talk about that. But the one thing I want to mention about the trust factor is, according to Gallup polling and Pew polling, the number one most trusted professional are nurses. And within that study, hygienists are considered the equivalent of a nurse in the dental practice. And so when it comes to that whole trust dynamic, what I've learned at least is when this code, at least the part where you're preparing the patient for the fact that they might need a little bit more aggressive of a cleaning next time they come in, we're going to look out for it. A lot of times what you find with the majority of the hygienists that I've interviewed is that the patients tend to take their word for it. They respect their clinical opinion, right? And they follow it for the most part. Most patients do. There are patients that you'll never make happy, and I totally understand that dynamic. Okay, so 4341. That is the scaling root planing 1 to 3 teeth per quad, right? So arguably, when you look at the data,
4342.
43, excuse me, yes, 4340. 4341 is full quad scaling. My apologies. So 4342 is the 1 to 3 teeth. And when you look at the data in terms of the Centers for Disease Control indicating that adults over the age of 30, it's almost 70% that have periodontal disease, gum disease, right? Which arguably, when you look at 4346 and then the 4341,
4341.
the 1 to 3 teeth, the isolated SRP code. How can you incorporate the 1 to 3 teeth scaling code on a patient that is, for the most part, healthy mouth? They just have 2 teeth in 1 quad that needs additional deeper cleaning.
That's a loaded question.
That's
Ben.
a good question.
That's a loaded question. So the first thing I'm gonna say before anything else is there has to be a standard of care established in the practice for when this happens. Otherwise, we're going to have every hygienist have their own way of moving through this type of interaction with a patient. So what I mean by that is there are different schools of thought with regards to how to proceed when we find an area during a prophy visit. We find an area that we have to go subgingival, there's bone loss, there's attachment loss, and a couple of teeth in a quadrant. How do we proceed with that? And some schools of thought think of it as more of a progressive. You know, we're going to handle the prophy today, and then we're going to bring the patient back for the limited SRP. Some offices are, if it's a covered benefit on the same date of service, they will do the 2 procedures on the same date. And yes, 60% of the time, the insurance company will actually pay for those 2 services to be provided on the same day. But then there's other offices that will say we're going to treat the disease first and then bring the patient back to finish the prophy. So it just depends on what the standard of care is in that practice. I don't care which way they go, offices go, just have a standardized protocol so that everybody is treating these interactions the same way.
Mm-hmm. So the follow-up question to that, Erica, is that when it comes to insurance coverage, I've been hearing that if you do a prophy on a patient, some insurance plans will not cover the scaling and root planing benefit at least for 30 days or 45 days, depending on the insurance. Is there some merit to that?
So the question that I asked on the breakdown is, can D1110 and D4342 be done on the same day? And you'll get a standard yes or no. If it's a no, the follow-up question to that is, how long of a waiting period before? So if my office standard is we're going to treat the disease on the date of the prophy visit rather than doing the entire cleaning, how long do I have to wait to bring the patient back to finish the rest of the cleaning, the prophy? And the insurance company will let you know, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. I've seen as far out as 45 days. And that gives the office the opportunity to say, listen, we found some infection, however you want to have this conversation with the patient. We found an area of infection. We need to treat that today. And then we're going to bring you back to finish your cleaning. Your insurance requires that we wait 45 days, or we can just take care of it today and you can pay for your the regular cleaning. Because when you bill those two services together and they are not a covered benefit, what will be denied is the prophy. They will pay for the limited scaling and root planning, but they will not pay for the prophy. So you can always opt to have the patient pay for the prophy if you want to have that patient do both services on the same date. I hope I didn't confuse everyone.
Oh, no, I think that made sense. Tessa and Morgan, any follow-up to that?
Sorry, go ahead, Morgan.
Okay, thank you. I actually just had a scenario really similar to this. It took a couple months to get it worked out with insurance, but our hygienist, she did, scaling 1 to 3 teeth, and then she did the SPI, the 4346 for the rest of the mouth. And the SRP was covered, and then the SPI was denied. I provided enough evidence to insurance by saying, hey, we only did these 2 teeth, and we can't just, and they were telling us that we couldn't bill the patient for the SPI. So yeah, it was deemed disallowed. So, and it was Delta. I sent in all the documentation. I filled out the provider dispute, and I said, hey, we did this, and we have to get paid because the work was done. If it's not a benefit, I told them on the paper that I hand wrote, it's fine if it's not a benefit, but we have to be able to charge the patient. And a couple weeks later, they paid for the SPI. So I think it's worth it to, if you don't find out beforehand, which you should, but appeal, even just out of principle, just to try. And then you can at least come back to your patient and say, hey, I did this. I went the extra mile. I did this, filled out this form by hand because, they don't let us do it online. I tried to get it covered. I did everything I could, and it didn't work out. So, appeal if they don't pay for it, or if they're not allowing you to charge for it, appeal it.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that. So many times when you get these denials, that's what we're hearing. Ben is saying oh, we send this out, but then we get a denial. So what do we do? Well, first thing, appeal that. Don't accept that. Don't just say, oh no, we have to write it off. Now we're out that money and it was a waste of our time to bill the claim. Definitely appeal that, argue that, fight it, go to your insurance commissioner. Another thing I wanted to mention is I hear a lot of times, and it doesn't happen as often as them billing the 4346 of the bloody prophy, but if they just have to do the 1 tooth, sometimes they just bill for the prophy and just treat the 1 tooth, and they never bill that 1 to 3 quad. And again, we're not billing for what we're doing, and we're not documenting properly, and we're not going to the insurance companies and enforcing them to do what they're supposed to be doing.
Excellent.
I think there's this mindset that offices and patients, that they've all just kind of adopted that if insurance doesn't cover it, the dentist doesn't get paid for it. And I think that's like a mindset we need to break. And even me as an admin, it's like, I'm not going to accept that we do work and the insurance says we can't charge for it. For me as an admin, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to make my doctor do work for free, my hygienist do work for free. And I think it's this mindset that you just kind of need to break. And it's just because the insurance doesn't cover it doesn't mean you can't charge for it.
Mhm.
Or if they tell you it's disallowed, appeal it and say it's okay if it's not a benefit, but I put on my appeals, we can't just do work for free.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, I love that.
I am like,
I love it.
if there's no benefit, that's fine. That's, not really our problem. But
Yeah.
as a business, we can't accept that. I'm not going to accept that.
Well, I think to add to that really quick is statistics show that I think it was 2022, only 33% of all of the claims that were denied were ever appealed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Only 33%. So as an industry as a whole, we got to do better as billers. We have to do better because what I hear a lot of is, I just don't have enough time in a day. It shouldn't take you a day. It shouldn't take you a whole day. What I do or what I did is I assigned a couple hours every Friday. Follow-up Friday is what I called it, where I would follow up on claims, do my appeals, but have an area or have some time set aside for that task, because otherwise insurance companies are monitoring the offices that are appealing the denials, or not even a denial, right, Tess? Like the additional information requests, these ways that they are staying within budget in order to keep, as you talk about, keeping the premiums low, so that, could you imagine what would happen if they paid every legitimate claim that came through? How high would premiums be? That would put Delta out of business because nobody could afford to pay Delta their premiums, right?
Yes.
So, it's just one of those things where we have to do better as an industry, as billers. We have to appeal decisions we don't agree with, and we have to make sure that we're submitting clean, valid claims with sufficient evidence proving dental necessity. Like that is like my mantra of billing, is submitting clean, valid claims with sufficient evidence proving dental necessity.
Yes, exactly. And if they are sending you a denial telling you not to charge the patient, then Morgan's response, you're also asking, in the way that you asked it, Morgan, without directly saying it, you're saying, is this not a covered service? And then if it's not a covered service, then I can charge the patient. If it is a covered service, I've provided documentation that it needs to be paid. It was valid. So you have an option. Either we charge the patient or you pay for the covered service. That's the option that the insurance company gets every single time they have a claim. If it's a covered service and you have provided documentation, clean, valid claim, it should be paid. If it's not covered, then they can deny it and you can charge the patient.
Right. Exactly.
That's excellent. Very good. We're going to move on to the next topic here. I appreciate your feedback. With one question that came in from one of the participants, from Erica Takanami. It's regarding, do hygienists talk to patients regarding copayment if it's not like for like 40 to 46 that might have a copayment? Is that something that the hygienist should bring up with the patient about the financial component of doing like a gingivitis cleaning?
We train hygienists that are not comfortable talking about money, and so that office chooses to have the front office talk about the copayment. It just depends. There are hygienists that are okay talking about, a small copayment of $30. You need a different type of cleaning. It looks like it's going to be about $30 out of pocket. But I think ultimately, if the way I could design it, I would not have my hygienist talk about money or insurance. I would leave that up to the experts up at the front. My hygienist's job is to educate the patient clinically as to what's going on in their mouth, so that when we have the insurance conversation, it's a no-brainer. The patient understands, has accepted responsibility for their oral health, and understands what's going on, so that, or what the treatment plan is, and then we can get the buy-in at that phase clinically with the patient, and then we can have our experts up at the front have that insurance conversation with the patient. That's the way I would love that to flow.
I agree.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. With consensus, we'll move on to the next question here. So this next question is directed for you, Tessina. I think we have 10 minutes left, Naren. If you can remind us, that'd be great. So the question for you, Tessina, is it's about knowing your rights and the laws, right? So explain the importance of knowing your legal rights and the laws as it pertains to protecting you from, some, I guess we could say insurance exploitation, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm huge on this. Knowing your legal rights and the laws that are pertaining to you. So the insurance company all day long will tell you their rights and their laws. Nobody's telling you your rights and your laws. Knowing that information is important for so many reasons. One would be empowerment. A big one is empowerment. With you knowing that knowledge and knowing that you can hold them accountable, you're able to be a lot more confident and a lot more assertive because you know that you have rights to fall back on, right? You've got that protection aspect in with that empowerment. I guess that I'm separating them, but they all wind up being one and the same benefit, right? Of like, you've got your empowerment now that when you understand your laws, you can recognize right away when you get those denials. If you read that denial, you can recognize they're violating a specific law, and you know that you have rights against them violating that law, right? So now you know you have that protection. Another thing is deterrence, and I love this. Eric and I talk about this all of the time. When you are, let me look at my notes. I was gonna make sure I worded this one properly. So, okay, so if you are continuing to appeal, like Erica and I talk about, or making sure that you file those complaints, you are deterring the insurance company from doing any future denials against your office because they know that you know your laws, your rights, and that you will hold them accountable. So deterrence is huge. That's super helpful in the long run. It's going to make your life a lot easier, right? And then a remedy. Now you have a remedy. You know you can take these actions, you know how to protect yourself, you know you've got your deterrence. So when you get these denials, you go and you file your complaints with the insurance commissioners, you submit these appeals, and you don't really have a problem anymore. You're not getting bullied because all of that all comes from just knowing your laws and knowing your rights. You don't actually have a problem anymore with denials.
Yeah,
And
give the bullies a reason to not bully you, right?
Yeah.
The more appeals you send, the less denials you'll get. Takes a couple
that's that deterrence, right? Yes.
Yeah, but no, that is fact.
Yeah.
That's Oh, 100%.
That's awesome. Well, Morgan, the next question is for you.
Yes.
So this is sort of a true or false question, right? In terms of, well, let me phrase it this way. Do the terms every 12 months and every calendar year, like on a benefit breakdown or a plan designed for insurance, do those mean the same thing?
They're similar, but no, they don't. So, and I changed my insurance breakdowns to where I said, are they telling me months or years or calendar year? Because let's say, when they say every 12 months, that means 12 months consecutively. So if a patient comes in for a pro fee on June 1st, 6 months later for December 1st, they wouldn't be eligible for another, they wouldn't be eligible for coverage for another pro fee until June 2nd of the following year, regardless whether the plan is, January to December, June or July to June. And so that is something I learned the hard way. For fillings for crowns, if they say 60 months, it is 60 consecutive months, not 5 years. And the insurances, they will stick to it. They will deny. Is it sneaky? I don't know. It's just something that I've seen a lot. And I feel like we're going to be seeing more and more limitations like this, as we go on. I think we're going to be getting a lot more limitations. But when you're doing your insurance breakdowns ahead of time, and everything. There is a difference between those two terms, 12 months or, months versus years. And one thing I do want to add is that even if you are within frequency, you can ask the insurance to waive the frequency. And a good amount of them will. I actually just got Delta Dental of California to waive frequency for a crown. We were 6 months short, and I had to send them additional documentation, and they waived it. And I've gotten cleanings, exams, fluoride. I got those frequencies waived just because I asked, hey, the patient was like 2 days early. Can we waive the frequency going forward? We have alerts, we have notes, we're set up in our software so this doesn't happen again. I'm just asking as a courtesy. And they'll waive it.
That's awesome. You've earned the new title, Queen of Appeals there, Morgan, today on this episode.
Thank you.
Those strategies are actually quite amazing. It's the first time I'm hearing of that
I'm
approach.
thinking podcast episode.
Oh yeah. We'll have some follow-up. And to the listeners, we're sort of running out of time. I apologize. I got like 15 questions and another 15 on the chat. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to all the questions today, but our promise is that if you email us, or we'll look at who wrote the questions and try to get back to you individually through email. But we'll post all of our emails here so that you can ask your questions directly to the panel of experts here in the event that we don't get to your question today. But the next question is for Erica. So there's this whole thing about insurance companies changing their policies and regulations as it pertains to how they pay claims. And several years ago, I ran into this. I'm not going to name the insurance company, mainly because some way, somehow they tend to find out when I say things that really, I'll just say it, piss them off, basically. They get them so upset. And one of which,
have you gotten those calls too?
lawsuits and all that every month. But anyway, so there was an issue with regards to a certain procedure code. It was a buildup. In the policy and procedure manual on how the insurance company pays, it says that the buildup is a standalone benefit provided that it is required for crown retention, exactly how the ADA code wrote it out. But they were bundling the buildup with the crown. So when we contacted them and says, hey, your own resource guide and policy procedure manual says it's a standalone benefit with no other instructions on how to get the claim paid or unbundled. Like Cigna, as an example, when you ask for their dental resource guide, it says you got to call and give Cigna the seat date in order for them to unbundle the buildup. So what this insurance company did is they added the same language. They said, we're not following our own policy and procedure. So the very next day, they sent me a copy and said, oh, you have the old copy. This is the new copy. And it was dated yesterday. So the question is, how do changes in insurance policies and regulations affect our dental coding protocols, and how can dental practices stay up to date with those changes?
So I often say in today's dental billing landscape, things are changing rapidly. And in order for us as billers to stay relevant with all of the changes, we have to stay up to date on payment processing policies. We have to stay up to date with our codes. We have to stay up to date with so many things. But I think understanding that these payment processing policies are ever evolving. And what was relevant 2 years ago is no longer relevant today. So there's common misconceptions out there, such as, you can't do a pro fee and limited SRPs on the same date of service. 10 years ago, no insurance company would ever pay for that, but they are paying for it now. So I think in order for people to understand these changes, I think you should understand your top 5 insurance plans, which insurance plans in your insurance profile are your top 5, and go to their websites and do it annually, and find out what the payment processing policy guidelines are for each of these plans, because some of them are going to be different. Like Cigna, as an example, they want you to call in and give the seat date, whereas you don't have to do that with another plan. So I think, just make sure that you understand and stay up to date with these policy guidelines.
Absolutely. They're called
And this is
dental.
our job as a biller, Ben. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
this is our job as a biller to be the best at what we do. That's it right there, is understand your top 5 plans that make up most of the insurance income of the practice, and then go and understand what their payment guidelines are.
Absolutely. And Naren, I think we're up with our time. Is that right?
That is correct. We do
Okay.
have a 10-minute break, and I'm wondering, should we take the break and then go into the next segment, or should we skip the break and go to the next segment?
I would say I want to just do a quick wrap up. So if you need to use the restroom, this is being recorded, of course. So go ahead and grab a drink or use the restroom. But I just want to wrap up to highlight these 3 ladies real quick.
Yeah.
As you can see, their knowledge is impressive. And so I'm going to ask them to put their email addresses in the chat. And that way, all the listeners who have questions that we didn't get to today can reach out to each of you to get those questions answered. There are questions regarding PPO negotiations. I can most certainly handle those questions for anybody that needs asking questions about how to negotiate. As it pertains to all things insurance, this panel here is here to serve the community. So reach out to them individually to get your questions answered. But thank you, Erica, Tessina, and Morgan. Three queens in dentistry as it pertains to insurance related management and strategies. Lean on them, reach out to them, but thank you 3 for the wonderful feedback and advice you gave today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
really
guys.
enjoyed the 3 of you. You're awesome as always. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
everything you do for the community and of course, Insurance Untangled community. So thank you so very much. Yeah, I think we have all the 3 email addresses and the website. So hopefully, if you have any further questions, reach out. These ladies would be so happy to help you. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. Why don't we take a break? And while Ryan gets set up, so we have 8 minutes and we'll come back. And maybe Ben, you can introduce Ryan and he can get started in like around 8 minutes.
Okay, excellent.
Perfect.
Hey, Ben, there was something I forgot to mention when we were talking about hygiene and all of that. I think, and I was just talking to Jen about this yesterday, when we have offices, I think part of the reason why offices are doing bloody prophies also, or just doing prophy after prophy rather than documenting for something else, is they just don't have time to infuse a different type of cleaning. And I think when you have offices that are booked out like 6 months for hygiene, you know, I was talking to an office recently, they're booked out 9 months for hygiene. So where do you find the time to insert that limited SRP into the 45 minutes that you've been given? I think this is a good area for offices to also take a look at their reimbursements, because now we've got, like, take a look at your reimbursement, because it could be that you are getting clogged up in your hygiene department with these low reimbursements, and it could be time to go out of network with some of these plans because they're just clogging up your schedule.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know, like that, I think these are indications of doing some type of analysis of your billing department, you know. So if you have offices that are booked out months in advance, that's an area where we might want to scratch our heads and go, let's take a look at how we're getting paid for these pro fees. You know, is it even worth it to stay in network with these plans? And yes, you're going to have some attrition, but it's also going to open up the schedule to spend more time with the patient, so that as we have that attrition, or we lose a few patients as we go out of network, we're also going to be increasing collections, because now we're going to be, we're going to have the time to care for the patient. And, you know, so I think that was something that I wanted to point out as well.
Thank you for that. I know that the 3 of you have a lot more to say and share, and I appreciate you sharing. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we need to plan episodes. Let's get together on Monday or Tuesday and start planning some episodes on what we weren't able to get to today, because including all these questions from the listeners, we need to get to those.
Yeah.
For those of you that are coming back, we're still just on a quick 10-minute break. We'll be back in about 5 minutes, but you'll probably hear us just chatting it up here. If anybody has questions that they want to chime in while we're waiting, feel free to do so. Oh, the emails that you shared went just to the hosts and panelists. If you don't mind clicking on the chat menu, there's a drop down where it says to, and you can click on everyone.
Oh.
Oh, Amara's so kind. She posted everybody's emails to the everyone. Thank you, Amara. So we have 4 minutes. I'm just going to go through some of these questions just to see which ones are quick and easy to answer.
Okay.
Let's see what we got. We don't see as much denials from Delta as we are seeing with Sun Life and your favorite Tessina, United Healthcare. So
right now is a really good time to submit complaints to the insurance commissioner for United Healthcare because they're already being looked at. So.
Oh yeah, I think that's the one Tessina started with a while back, and
yeah.
That was one that Tessina brought to their knees. And so there's a process. Get together with Tessina to pick her brain about that. But there's a very unique process that you could put a complete end to those delay tactics and denials with any insurance company, and not just specifically Sun Life and United Healthcare. Another question here real quick. We got 3 minutes. Should my narratives be brief or very in-depth? I worked with offices where narratives are only 1 sentence long, while in other offices, the narratives are about a paragraph long.
Get to the point as possible.
Yep, length doesn't matter. Short and brief. Most of them are not even reading it. They're just having a computer scan it for keywords. So make sure you have the keywords necessary for that program to grab it and approve it for payment.
If you're going to submit a lengthy one, then submit it as an attachment.
Yes.
Yep.
Because I think it's only 80 characters, 86 characters.
It's not very long.
Yeah, including spaces and periods and commas and any other to the EU. So just get to the point, for buildup, just needed for retention purposes. You just want to get straight to the point. But if you are going to submit a lengthy one, then make sure you submit it as an attachment.
Very good. You had a comment there, Morgan? We got 2 more minutes left.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, on box 35 where you would put the narrative, it doesn't allow for that many characters. So just like Erica said, if it's long, send an attachment. And another thing is I'm very stingy on what I send to insurance as far as documentation. So for example, my office is really good at getting, a full FMX, they get the 18 images. So if we do a crown on tooth number 2, I'm going to pick the 1 best x-ray, maybe 2, depending, and send that to insurance, because what I've seen is, especially like Guardian, where they almost always deny crowns. So I will only send 2 of the 4 x-rays that I have, because if you send all the x-rays with the claim, the insurance, they're more, they're going to deny it usually. And then they say, we'll review the appeal if you send additional information. Well, if you already sent all the information you have, what else are you going to send? I like to keep it super simple to the point. This is the best x-ray. It shows the decay. It shows it the best. And then if they want more, I can send them more.
Excellent. Well, very good. Thank you, ladies. I know that Ryan is coming up here in about 30 seconds. So we'll just give him a moment. We'll do the moment of silence. Not because, yeah, we'll do a moment of silence to honor his entrance as the final speaker for today.
I should have theme music or something, I guess. Yeah, I said I'm bad in cleanup. When you come to the plate, you get your walk-up song.
Your
I should have my walk-up song. Ready to go.
Well, let me give you a proper introduction there, Ryan.
Appreciate that.
You know, we're thrilled, Ryan, for you to sort of close us out, right? The bases are loaded, and you're going to hit a home run, a grand slam. We're looking forward to that. So Ryan is a digital marketing advisor, sort of an expert on so many things as it pertains to the psychology of persuasion, sales, getting people to make decisions and move in the right directions. Because he's worked not only just with private organizations, but he's also worked on political campaigns. He's been an expert on sales and marketing psychologies. He's certified with Sandler Sales and is also considered a Chandler expert. A great speaker and presenter at a number of dental conventions throughout North America. Ryan comes with a background and knowledge as it pertains to this whole idea of what Gary mentioned, adding a marketing plan to replace, your Delta patients, or replace the idea of you getting patients from Delta by getting patients from Google that don't come with the insurance strings attached, right? So Ryan, we're looking forward to what you have today. The floor is yours.
Excellent.
I should say break a leg, but what is the appropriate baseball analogy to like hit a home run or something?
I don't know. Just put the ball in play, I guess. Like you said, bases are loaded. We gotta bring it home now, finish this off. So over the next 4 hours and 45 minutes, I'm gonna be talking. I'm just kidding. It's Friday afternoon. We're already speaking about baseball talk. My Cubs are playing the rival Cardinals right now, so it's a great Friday afternoon for me. I'm looking forward to kicking off the weekend. But before we do, this is a great topic, and I love this presentation. And like Ben just mentioned, this kind of brings home everything that we talked about today and puts a nice ribbon and a bow on it. And I have to say thank you to Ben and Narain for having me here to speak today about breaking free from PPO plans and how to really, again, as Gary mentioned, how do you build that ideal patient base? And I just, I take so much from everybody who spoke here today, Howard, Brian, Ben, you go down the list. It's just so incredible being able to be a part of this. And I'm going to kick this off here. A little bit about us. I mean, I think you know us by this point, but we met Narain with 18 years of marketing experience in digital marketing and the founder of CEO of Equal Marketing. Co-host of the Less Insurance Dependence podcast with Gary, with the Insurance Untangled with Jordan and Ben. So really, I mean, we just want to kind of set the stage for you in terms of, our knowledge and background in this. Ben, thank you so much. Wonderful introduction in terms of what I do and what I'm about. And as he mentioned, I've spent 24 plus years now in sales and marketing, over a decade in digital marketing. I have worked on political campaigns. Please don't hold that against me. I know that is a very contentious thing, and it's a whole thing to itself. But when you talk about marketing psychology, identifying with people, the idea of ethical influence around unity and social proof and all of those things, it all kind of comes together with that. And I'm really excited to kind of bring that forward here and talk about quite a few different things. I know there's a lot listed here, but it's going to go quick and you're going to see why. But really, we want to talk and kind of dig a little bit more about Gary's thought of why a PPO fee is a marketing expense. What are the average PPO write-offs? So you can really understand, again, what is your true marketing budget, right? As Gary did in the air quotes earlier, and the challenges of PPO dependency, which I know Howard and Brian talked about as well. What happens, that chicken or the egg, where does it come in and how do you get started? And what does that look like when it happens? How do you identify it? We're going to calculate what that write-off is and talk about the alternative marketing strategies. What else is out there and how can you put those in play? And what's the right solution for you? I'm going to put together a bit of a roadmap for you to help transition away from PPOs. I know one of the questions earlier that was in the chat was around, do you just drop them all at once or what do I do here? Well, we're going to talk about that, about what a gradual transition, a successful transition looks like. How to dominate Google, and specifically how people get to know you and find you organically. So the idea here is not someone going to Google and searching your practice by name or you by name, but when they don't know who to go to, when they don't know who to trust, how do people find that person and what does that mean in terms of an ROI? What does that mean in terms of all of that sort of a thing? And then going back to Gary's point one, this is that point two of creating that plan, but point one, know your data, understand where you're at. So step one is that, and I'm going to be able to introduce you how to sort of understand, and I can compile that data for you, and then master the process to marketing to the high value services that you do. So when you do this, I'm going to ask you if you could just drop it in chat or something like that. But how many patients are you getting now? Like, let's just say on a monthly basis, and from where? And do you know that information? Are you able to break it down granular to say, I'm getting X number from referrals and X number from Google, and PPO gives me this many and this many comes from here, right? Or is this sort of I get about 15 a month and I don't know where they come from, or whatever it is, right? Like Gary earlier said, 90 a month, they're coming through Google. I know where it's coming from. I got it, right? So kind of go through and take a moment here to understand what that looks like and where that is for you in terms of those numbers. Just, it's great to quantify it. I think it's really important to understand that information and be able to kind of put that into perspective for everybody. And with that, what I want to do is I want to bring up a poll here for everybody who's here. And I want to know, do you rely on PPO plans to get new patients? So when I say rely, the poll question is going to be pretty simple around yes or no, right? Is it there? And I've launched it there for you to be able to go in and click yes or no. And when I say rely, it means if they went away tomorrow, would you be in business? Not that they are, that you get some from it or whatever it is, but is this important to you enough that if you had no PPO patients coming forward, you would feel the impact from that, right? So is there somewhat of a reliance on this? I'm going to give everybody a few seconds here to be able to answer this question and give it some thought, because this is really what's, key and important about this is not understanding like, well, I don't rely on it. Like, I'm okay. But if they went away tomorrow, if it never existed, if something happened, would you be like, oh boy, that's going to be a hit to my lifestyle. That's going to be a hit to my head count. Is it going to be a hit to what I'm doing here, right? And understanding that reliance that we all see. So give me a couple more seconds for things to trickle in here, and a few more answers to come in, and then we're going to share if there's reliance on it, if there's a reluctance toward it, if people are able to kind of have started the process of getting away from it, and also understanding if you are getting away from it, are you successful in getting all the new patients that you're looking for? So I am going to end the poll here, and I am going to share the results with everybody. And we've got some interesting answers, right? So out of the group that participated here, it looks like about 70% are not reliant on PPO plans to get new patients, which is phenomenal. You've got a system coming in and you don't need them anymore. And I mean, that's exactly what we've been talking about, and exactly why you're here is to get away from it. And then for the other 30% or so, we're looking at, yeah, this is something that it is a reliance on it to be successful. So whether it is a reliance, or whether it's a part of what your practice, or whether it's not part of your practice at all anymore and you're entirely, fee for service and you've escaped it, there's still critical information where you can maximize potential and maximize ROI. And that's what we're here to talk about, which is really exciting. So we are going to go right through it and talk about a little bit more about Gary's point of why is a PPO fee considered a marketing expense. And I think he touched on that extremely well, right? This is your feeder to get new patients. The purpose of marketing is to get new patients. So that is really what you are doing. And the nature of PPOs is to send you new patients, but they take a significant cut. So while marketing may be an upfront expense and then you recover it once the patient shows up, this is the opposite. They are going to give them to you and then they are going to recoup the cost. But the recoup of the cost is quite high. And here's an example, a bit of a case study in terms of, the UCR usual customary fee for a crown, let's just say, is $1,000. The PPO allows a charge of $700, and then the reimbursement is $500 on top of that, right? So when we look at an example like that, basically what we're saying is $500 is a marketing cost, because that's the amount that you got for that patient to come in and receive the crown. So you paid out that, you just gave it after the service instead of before the service when you're considering the marketing costs. And from my experience, when I talk to majority of practices, and I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of practices about this, but they often are giving up, up to half of their revenue to PPO adjustments. And that is just a massive annual expense when you break it down. when we look at that, let's just, again, give an example, right? So if a typical practice write-offs is around $300,000 annually, when we look at that, you break that down to basically say, if I have 1,000 patients, that means that every time I'm getting a new patient through the PPO marketing strategy, if we're changing our mindset on this, you're getting that at $300 is what it's costing. Your patient acquisition cost is $300 for each one that comes in to see you. And again, I mean, for a variety of services, so there's a whole bunch of different ROIs that go into play on this, but you're basically paying out $300 every time that they are going to send you a new patient in. So when you compare that, and we're going to go through a chart of what that looks like in terms of other marketing strategies, this is exceptionally high cost to be able to get a new patient. PPO just provides you the security of, yeah, I guess they're coming, so that's great, right? Like they're gonna send me people, because that's the important thing, right? Is that they're making sure they're sending me somebody. It's a security blanket, but you're paying a lot of money for that security blanket to happen and for that to take place. And if you've got a strategy in place to start to break away from that and how to do it gradually over time, you're going to be able to, again, break free of that, keep more of what you're actually earning and what you're actually doing, so you can grow personally and professionally the way that you intended when you started a practice. I mean, and again, I think everybody has touched on this one, and especially, again, Gary at the start touched on this, and I know Brian touched on this in terms of that institutionalization of the idea of, this is just the way it is. It's, I don't even remember the saying right now, and I wish I did. It's like, it's this is the way it is and forever shall be, and things like that. So basically what it's saying is this is how we've always done it. This is how I'm always going to do it. And there's no other option, and I go back to one of my favorite things is The Simpsons, and it's been on for, I think, 300 years at this point. But one of the great lines from it was one of the characters, Ned Flanders' parents, say, "We've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas," right? And that's what tends to happen with PPO dependency. Well, I've tried nothing, but I'm out of thoughts on how I can break this dependency, right? So we've got this institutionalization ingrained in us that this is the way that it has to be. And then you get a high volume, low margin. So you're focused on quantity, not quality of patients. So you need to see a lot of people quickly. You're compromising relationships. You're compromising quality of care. You're having a lower acceptance rate for treatment plans, because again, you're not having that time to build rapport and build trust and showcase why you're an expert and why you have authority. And, to Brian's point, you get these, okay, well, now I'm 10 minutes late for appointment, 15, 20, 30, right? I don't care. I got to get as many people in as I can and just keep jamming my schedule full to make sure that I'm in that high volume, low margin bracket. And then you get stagnation, which really, again, you get handcuffed in terms of being able to invest in new technology and better staff and practice improvements and all of the things that are going to help you grow over time. So again, it just becomes this, you get to a point and then you plateau and you're like, well, this is how it's going to be moving forward. So we're going to do something here to take about 3 minutes. And I would love for you to find out your total PPO write-off per year. And the team's going to put a link in the chat where you can go and you fill in the calculator form. It's very easy to be able to do. It's just a couple quick numbers to be able to go through it. And you will be able to find out when you get the result there, to compute the PPO write-offs in a typical year, right? So pretty simple in terms of that, but we're going to figure out what your non-marketing marketing budget is, right? So you take that number and you think about that going, yeah, this is the cost of my new patient inflow that I am getting by being able to calculate the PPO there. So I'm just going to make sure here it's in the chat. It is in the chat. Fantastic. So make sure you're going in there, fill that out. It's really going to help you understand and get a really great picture of what you're up against with that. And as I said, I want to present some alternative marketing strategies, right? So we talked already about Google. There's Google Organic, there's Google Ads, there's social media, there's all sorts of different things. But let's break them down into buckets, a cost, and be able to look at what the benefits and the effectiveness of each of them are. Starting with organic Google results. So these are going to be your most effective in terms of building intent and trust. When we go to Google, we go there for a reason now. And it happens, billions of times a day. We go in, we ask a question, and we get an answer. Google has already trained us that they have vetted all of the answers for us to say, these sites at the top are the ones that the most people trust. It's got social proof to it. We know that the answer is vetted. It's a safe, secure site. It works really well. You're going to get your answer fast and laid out for you from an expert that has authority and trust in the industry. Plain and simple. We don't go down to the 78th result and go, well, let's play the lotto. Maybe my answer's here, right? We go to the top result or the top few, and we collect our answer. So in order to do that, they're organic. So Google just ranks you based on having a web presence and how you're doing. So with that, you need to understand that you still need to put in something in terms of your SEO. Now that could be, sweat equity in terms of you doing it, but the majority of dental practice owners are going to say, look, I need to be able to invest in this and have a team behind me that is going to build my web presence out, my website, my Google business profile, my social media, all of my other profiles that I should be listed on, all of my local citation sources, my maps, everything else to make sure that I rank at the top so people can find me really easily. And that's usually going to come in, $500, $1,500 per month, but I would say more in that $1,500 per month range, up to about $15,000 annually. Like Gary gave that number before, and I totally agree with that. I think that's about the right bracket that you want to be in for that. What you get from that is a really high ROI, because again, when people are looking, they go to Google, doesn't matter what it is. When we're looking for something, we're looking for a specialist, we're looking for an expert, we're looking for an answer to a question that we have. It's plain and simple. We go there because we know that that's where we're going to get the answer. And because we're searching for it and it comes up organically, we have intention and we have trust built in, right? So we know that we're going to trust that, and we have intention that that's what we're looking for at this time. And you get that for a fraction of the PPO cost. Really, practices that are investing in this are steadily attracting a stream of new patients, and they're able to, this is the methodology for reducing PPOs. Google Ads is the idea of being able to do this, but it takes a lot more effort. It is more expensive. And, I think Brian mentioned where he is in Draper, Utah, right? 12 dentists in a 2-mile radius. Good luck. Now it becomes a supply and demand where you're bidding against them, and Google Ads can be higher and higher and higher every month. It's also like a faucet style marketing where once you run out of that budget, you're done. You're not getting any more leads until you top up your budget again, whether that's next month or next quarter or next week or whatever it is, you're off the grid again. And typically, you need to be able to offer something special because it's an ad. You're going to get about 15 seconds of attention compared to SEO, where you get 90 seconds to be able to book that consultation first appointment. So in that 15 seconds, typically, in order to get someone to click an ad, as we all know, we don't trust ads that much. That's why we scroll past them most of the time. We see that sponsored. And second of all, when we go into an ad, it's because usually there's something there for us. There's a what's in it for me scenario. So typically already you're also you're spending more, but you're lowering the ROI from that lead. You get quick visibility though. So if you're building a practice, you can get it right out of the gate. SEO takes time, but that does come at that cost. You can also target very specific patients in very specific areas. But again, you're doing very specific searches. So if you're looking to gather a wider net of services, wider range of patients, ads may not be the best solution. Social media marketing, we're in that same kind of budget again. You can spend as little as $500 a month. You can go up to about $2,000 or more a month. And really, you're just doing this through regular posts, patient engagement. You really want to focus on this. It's got to be like an influencer style marketing, and you're building yourself as the brand, but you need multiple posts to be able to do this. You're spending a lot of time doing your social media marketing and making sure that you are on top of it. And again, when something comes across your social media as an ad, we don't have time for it. We're not there to learn on social media about what's happening in the world of veneers, right? Like, we are there because we want to shut off our brains. So you only have about 5 seconds of attention compared to the 15 and the 90 seconds to be able to get that. And then of course, referral programs, right? And these are phenomenal. They can very wildly depend on how you want to do it, but it really just leverages existing patient satisfaction to continue to grow your base. And this is going to be, the highest factor in terms of, and you've got a high trust factor in terms of being able to get new patients in. They've already, again, you've got intent, you've got trust, you've got somebody who trusts them, they're directing them to you. between the both sides, you look at the goalposts there, or both pillars on the ends, that's the combination that you need to be able to be successful. So if we're transitioning away, I want to repeat Gary's thought. Step one is know your data. You have to know where you're at now. You have to know what's happening in your world to be able to transition away from it, right? So get that information. I'll tell you about how to collect all of that and a way to do it. But when you do that, there's 4 steps to it. First of all, you got to have that online presence, right? So focus on your website, focus on having up-to-date information, blogs, articles, videos. Videos are how we, content is queen, content is king these days. That's what we want, or videos. That's how we consume information. So try and get into that. Before and after photos, all these types of things are going to be really important. But the other big one is accumulate positive Google reviews and love letter style Google reviews. We'll talk about those in a bit, but you need the quantity, quality, and velocity of those reviews, because just like if you're outside a restaurant, you're outside 2 sushi restaurants, you look in one, it's empty. You look in one, it's absolutely packed and the lined up around the corner. Where are we going? We're going to the one that's got the line. So if you go to 2 offices and one's got 4 Google reviews and one's got 1,400 5-star reviews, we're not looking at the one with 4. We're going to the one with 1,400. So really focus on that. Invest in marketing. Again, get away from the idea of it being a marketing being another expense you're adding to it. This is your idea to transition away from PPOs and eventually recoup way more ROI, right? And it's going to take a bit of time, not an insane amount of time. We're going to talk about what that kind of timeline looks like. But, after 8, 10, 12 months, you're starting to look at this transition plan. But you invest it into things like SEO or Google Ads and social media, things like that. But SEO is going to be your centerpiece that you need to be able to invest in. And then track and analyze. Again, know your data. Where are people coming from? How much money are you spending? And what's happening? Membership plans. Again, Brian mentioned about the idea of picking up the phone and he called 12 and he asked, do you have a membership plan, right? In-house membership plans for uninsured patients. It's cost-effective care options, and you promote these as a viable alternative, right? So it's a compare and contrast, and it gives a loyalty incentive to it. Repeat, again, people are going to follow your treatment plans a lot more. So it's incredibly important to have that. And then to everybody's point as well, have a buy-in. The staff have to understand the value of the services beyond insurance, that we don't rely on it, how to value sell it, how to talk about it. We talked about that with a hygienist talking about it. You have to have a buy-in from your team and an understanding, and how that is a patient-centric approach. That's the purpose of this. And that's also going to help you build those loyalty and that word of mouth that we're looking to get to continue to grow. So we talk about Google. Why? Well, I mean, I think everybody here knows Google's a verb now. This is what we do. You don't have an answer, Google it, right? That's everyone's answer. I'm going to go to Google, or hey, just ask Google. Like, I don't know your answer. Go ask Google, right? So they are the absolute dominant market share, almost 91% compared to the everybody else. Now, of course, Bing's now partnering with OpenAI, which is, again, Howard talked a lot about AI and what's happening in that space and things like that. But billions worldwide are looking all the time, and Google's the answer for maps, for how to get places, for online search, for all of your services, for shopping, for whatever it is. We go to Google, and this has remained relatively unchanged over the past, number of years at this point. They are the dominant force, and I cannot understand how they will not continue to be, very much the lion's share dominant force moving forward. So that's where you need to be. You need to be where the people are. You're not going to be sitting there and trying to yell from, from out in a desert for patients when you could yell from the rooftops in the middle of a busy city, right? So that's where we want to go. So when we talk about that, how do you dominate it, right? This is the important part, is how do I get found on Google? And it's not easy, because if it was, everybody would be doing it, right? And that's why Google makes billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars in ads, and billions of dollars in healthcare and in dentistry. It's because of the fact that people say, you know what, Google organic, too hard. I can't do it. I don't know how. I'm going to buy an ad instead. I'm going to buy my VIP parking spot at the front, because I don't know how to navigate the parking lot to get a better spot at the front. So I'm just going to do that. Good enough. That's where I'm going to park, right? But as we said, there's a cost, there's a trust factor involved. So in order to dominate Google, you have to do 6 key things, which is NAP consistency. So your name, address, and phone number is everywhere and consistent in the same format. Google Lighthouse scores. I like to say it's the IRS for the internet. How are you doing from a technical audit standpoint? Are you having original content? Again, the days of AI now, people, oh, I'm just going to have ChatGPT write something for me. ChatGPT just scrapes what other people are doing. So it's still copied content in many, many, many cases. Have original content. And monthly letter Google reviews, while focusing on Google Eat, which is their expertise, authority, and trustworthiness in every page, not just on your home page, not just on your About Us page, on every page that is evident, as well as quality backlinks. So a high number of quality backlinks, not just total backlinks. We've all gotten those emails that come in spam and say, I'll sell you 1,000 backlinks for $50. And, you know, great. So you're linking back in from a monster truck site, or you're linking back in from a site that's literally just a series of links. Google's gotten wise to that. It doesn't work. So let's talk about the 4 here that I think are the most important in terms of what we can cover today. But NAP consistency is going to be your first jumping off one. And there we see Gary's Life Smiles dental care, and how important it is from your Google business profile and all profiles to have this same name, address, phone number across the board. And this is a wonderful example, and I love it. Phone number, you can have a new patient number plus a current patient number plus an emergency number. You need to have one consistent number that is going to be your main number that appears on Facebook, it appears on Google, it appears on Yelp, it appears on everything. Not one number somewhere and one number somewhere else, but your key number. Now on your website, you can have all of your numbers, so it's evident for people, but this is the key point, is you need to kind of have a kicking off point. From your name, Life Smiles Dental Care, you cannot have Life Smiles Dental somewhere, and then Life Smiles is one word somewhere, or whatever it is, right? If you have an and in your name, you can't have and somewhere and ampersand somewhere. It creates multiple profiles, and that becomes a NAP consistency killer in your profile score. And then I love the address here. This is wonderful. E, Shea, BLVD, STE 250. It's not 250 dash. It's not number 250. It's not suite spelled out. It's not boulevard spelled out. It's not east spelled out. This is the format, and you keep it. And you have this replicated everywhere you go. And as you can see, you know, Gary's Life Smiles practice, 94,000 times and 105 new patient calls in a recent month. I'm going to show you a report as well that we provided Equus, so you can really see what kind of numbers are important and where you should be stacking up in that know your data standpoint. And that's like this, right? So it's going to show you how many new visitors came to your website. How did they engage with your website? I love that middle one, right? Number of times your website appeared on Google search, 76,000 times in a month due to various search terms. And there's 2,673 different search terms that are up there. Well, which ones should you be ranking for? What are the most high value? What are the ones that people are engaging with? Do you know all this information? Are you attacking those ones, right? So that you're ranking over and over and over at the top of Google. And there you see, you know, because of that, narrowed down to say, hey, here's 414 that are the most important that are appearing on the top on that page 1 on Google, of which 53 of those are right at the top. And that has been able to drive 592 inbound calls directly from Google. And we can say, again, excluding paid traffic, this is something you can track, and you have to understand the numbers behind it, right? What are they searching for? Where are the calls coming from? What are they clicking? Are they coming through the maps? Are they coming from your website? Are they coming from, you know, Facebook, social media, whatever? How are they finding you and understanding that? But when you look at this, you know, this is an overnight success, years in the making at this stage, but this is why he can be free of the PPO plans, is because there's 592 inbound calls coming a month. He's ranking for 53 things that they're really high value right at the very top, 414 total that people are easily able to find them for and be able to drive new patients. So the value of those from an ROI perspective is so much higher than a PPO patient, because again, once they're in there, you've paid that, whatever it is, $1,250 per month kind of idea to be able to get that new patient in. But you're getting 100 new patients in at $1,250 a month, which is $12.50 instead of $300 every time a new patient comes in that you're paying after the fact for the service, right? Google Lighthouse, we talked about this a little bit. I love it as the IRS for the internet. Basically, it takes a live audit snapshot of that page on your website. It's not your entire domain. It's not your entire website. Each page has its own Google Lighthouse score. The reason is when people are searching veneers, crowns, bridges, whatever it is, Invisalign, Google doesn't take you to the homepage and then you navigate the services and find that page. Google takes you directly to the site, to the page on the site you're looking for. And if you're even asking a question about something about that, right, around, you know, how much time for Invisalign, blah, 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 and you've got some very specific question about it, Google's even going to take you down on the page and highlight it for you. Go, here's the answer to your question on this page. So you don't even have to do any searching. We're lazy, right? The number one rule that we love to live by for a website is don't make me think. If we're making people think, you've lost them. We are a lazy society. I was just part of a webinar panel the other night, and one of the comments that the lady made was one of the doctors was basically, when people land on your website or when people are engaging with you, they have the attention of a fruit fly on cocaine, right? Like they just have absolutely zero ability to pay attention to the details and to what's important. I think that goes back to you know, the comments before about when you're treating a patient, you don't use dental terminology. Same thing with your website. You don't go in and have technical dental terminology. You are talking to them as if they don't know, so you can educate them and give them the answer, spoon feed it for them, right? Google Lighthouse is going to look at your overall site performance, technically, how fast is it? Again, every second that someone has to wait for a site to load, another 11% of your traffic falls off. And when that traffic backs out, we've all done this, wait for something to load, forget it, I'm out of here. We back out, we're never coming back. That's it, it's gone. That's a new patient that's lost to you, right? So you need a fast performing website that works well on mobile, because it's where well over 70% of people are searching, that is fully accessible, and that's litigious now under the American Disabilities Act, that if it's not fully accessible to everybody of ability or disability, you could become liable for that. Are you following best practices and security, and do all your links work? And then for SEO, your table stakes to make sure that everything is working for you from that perspective. Original content, and we talked about this, the importance of original content, right? So what you want to make sure, again, 80% of dental websites, web pages have duplicate content, they never rank. For every 400 words on a page, you're allowed 5%, 20 of them to be a duplicated content. I see so many people when I do, you know, strategy meetings with people, and I do an audit for them, and I do all their data collection, where it's just like, you're not ranking because everything here is duplicated. The reason for that is Google, again, your Google EAT is expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. Are you an expert in what people are looking for? And again, to convert a new patient, you got to answer 3 questions. Do you do what I'm looking for? Do I trust you? Do I like you? Well, if I'm looking for answers on a question, and Google knows this, they're going to look at your site first. If you've copied somebody else's paper, right, in school, or you've copied somebody else's page and you've cut and pasted in there, Google doesn't know if you're an expert or not, or you're just copying someone else's expertise and passing yourself off as an expert. And they also don't care who came first. So if you wrote something great and someone hijacked it from you, you have to be aware, did somebody do that? And do you have content that's changed it? I've got 2 young girls, and you know, it's always, well, she did this and she did that. I don't bother to unravel who was first. Forget it. That would just, like, I mean, migraine central, right? That would just end any enjoyment of spending any time. But so all I say is, I don't care, figure it out, right? Like, just figure it out. And that's what Google's going to say. Figure it out. Just have original content. So make sure that that is something that you've got from that perspective. Incredibly important. If you're not doing it, you're just not going to rank. And then the all important love letter and Google reviews, right? So again, you want the quality, quantity, and velocity of your reviews, right? So when we're talking velocity, I like to say, you know, aim for 10 a month or 2 a week or whatever, but set a bar and try and reach that. Quantity, again, gamify it. Find out who has more in your neighborhood, in your city, in your, you know, in your area, and be able to say, okay, great, they're at 580 and we're at 250. I want to be able to, you know, celebrate with the staff a little bit here, or just have, you know, recognition when we hit 300 and 400 and 500, or when we pass them, or whatever it is, right? It makes it so there's a common goal. It makes it evident for everybody on your team to see that this is what you're working towards. You know, have a Google review champion that is pushing the team for this, that reminds people to ask for them, all of those things. And coach your patients how to leave a review. Incredibly important, because the relevancy of a review is what Google really looks at. When you go into a Google review, they don't go, okay, well, this was the next one, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, and it's time. You know, that's how it's sorted by newest to oldest. It goes by relevancy. And really, it's things like, do you mention who you saw? Do you mention what service was done? Do you mention why you chose to go there? Do you have pictures, right? If it's something great. I just did one yesterday. I was talking with someone who was a pediatric dentist. All the pictures of all the great stuff to wow kids and to make it exciting for families to come in there, right? So if you've got that in the reviews too, and people see that, it makes it even more exciting. Google sees that, they're going to rank you higher. But you need to collect the quantity, quality, and velocity of the reviews and coach people again to say, we adore getting love letters from our patients. Really, it helps us understand what we're doing well and if there's areas for improvement. But really what we want to do is, in order to help other people find us and trust us just like you do, they're going to trust your words much more than they're ever going to trust mine. So if you could leave us a Google review that mentions who you saw, what service you had done, and most notably why you choose us and why you trust us with your dental care, it would mean the world to us. And try and get it, relatively close to after the appointment, if not on the spot. Because once we open the doors and we hit the real world, when we get those reminders that are 3 days later saying, hey, did you have a great time here? Leave us a review. I don't know about you, but I'm always like, yeah, I should leave a review. Too busy, I'll do it later. Swipe, I never come back to it, right? So it's really hard to capture reviews the longer you leave. Once the sun hits you, or I'm in Canada, so thankfully it's nice right now, but when the snow hits us in the winter right in the face, forget it. I've already forgotten what just happened. So it's really important to kind of stay on top of that. So my invitation, again, step one before any of this is know your data. And that's really what I do, is help you break down what is your data. Where are you at on this? Are you ranking? Do you have NAP consistency? How is your site doing from a Lighthouse score? Do you have ethical influence on every page? Are you showing expertise, authority, and trustworthiness? Is your content original? Did somebody hijack it if it is, right? So that's where I go in and I do a full analysis, and I do it personally. So it's going to be, I go through it and I make sure that I am going to go through and see your practice and how you're doing. And I mean, you've been here all afternoon on a Friday, which I commend you for, and I cannot thank you for enough. And you've listened to me now for the last half an hour or so go through this as well. But why not make everything that you've done here granular for you? Why not collect that data point and understand where you're at today and start to look at what a roadmap looks like and those efforts to get rid of those PPO plans are going to look like and the strategy behind it, right? So equa.com/MSM/Ryan, that's how you can see my calendar. Absolutely. I think there's a link in the chat as well. Please, send a message there or find a time there. And I would love to be able to make this granular and apply to you directly. So, that step one of Gary's plan of know your data. And, from Equa, I love seeing this because there's so many people here that I've now met with and are a part of this, but they're just absolutely thrilled with us. And it's a really fun marketing meeting. I promise I will keep it entertaining. I will try to make you laugh. I'll try not to make you cry, but I can't tell you how your results are going to go. But we will have a great meeting that really applies to you and answer those questions of how does my practice grow? How do I keep more of the money that I should be earning? How do I get my message out there? And really, how do I get rid of PPO plans to make all of that happen? So when we look at that 3-step process to mastering that high value services marketing, those high ROI services that we want to go after, you want to identify and need to identify those keywords and phrases that are related to those services. So as I said before, right, you don't just want to say I'm ranking for random things or I'm not ranking for anything, but what are the high value keyword searches that are going to lead to new patients that are paying for high value services that are going to increase your ROI. To Gary's point, when you do this, are you going to have the same patient count right out of the gate or over the first year or 2 years? No, you're not. But the idea is that instead of paying that $300 cost, you're paying $12.50. Your ROI is so much higher, you don't need as many patients, which also allows you to spend more time with your patients and have a better care acceptance plan and things like that, where you're going to be able to grow your practice in ways that you didn't see possible because you're not with a turnstile mentality of trying to churn through things as quick as possible. Have amazing pages that convince your patients to call your practice. Again, do you do what I'm looking for? Do I trust you? Do I like you? I don't want to land on a Wikipedia page where you show me how smart you are because you talk about, dental implants for 7,000 words. I want to meet you. I want to know that you're good at it. And I want to be able to see, do other people trust you? Do you have before and after photos? Do you have all of these things? Do you have happy patients that are saying great things about you in reviews? If you can show me that, that's what's important. I don't care how smart you are. I want to know, do I connect with you and do other people like you? Social proof, absolutely critical. And then Brian talked about this too. Answer the phone and master the phone, right? Learn when someone asks you, do you take my insurance? How do you answer that? Ask for the appointments. Like, please ask for the appointments. So many people, at the front, when they call, their number one priority, they think, is my job is to answer questions. It is not. Your job is to book appointments and to be able to turn those questions into that. So you have to know how to drive that, master the phone. We see so many times where it's like a third, 50%, higher, 70% of missed opportunities when we analyze calls. And that's a real issue, right? So it's important, as again, to Brian's point, where do you start? Do you put is it the chicken or the egg? But it's important that early in your journey, in order to resign from PPO plans, you bring this on, right? So it's very important to master digital marketing early. If you're deep in the weeds and you've been doing this for so long and you're like, well, how do I get in now? Because I've been doing this for so long. You start somewhere. It's a gradual process. You work your SEO, you start dominating the rankings. You see the patients coming in from that. You do a PPO sheet where you go, who are all of my providers? How much am I getting?
We need to wrap it up soon, but go ahead.
Yep. Yeah. There's one slide left. How do I do all of this? How do I get all my patients? How much do they cost me? And then you can start to resign from the bottom up on that standpoint. And that gives you that ability to replace those patients and drop those PPO plans and then replace that flow with the high ROI patients that you're looking for. So again, please take the time, take an hour. I will go through and I will spend more than an hour prepping it for you, I promise. And I will sit down with an hour for you to make sure that this all applies to you directly and how to get free and how to make the most out of your practice and continue to grow. So there you go. I don't think we're doing a Q&A, but I will leave it there for Narain to take back over here and give us the outro.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I think the time spent with Ryan would be really, really useful. So if you are interested in growing the new patients, the best way to do it is through Google. And the best person to talk to is Ryan, because he will take a comprehensive view. He'll do a lot of research, tell you where you are with SEO, with NAP, all the pieces of SEO. And then, of course, give you a plan. So thank you so much, Ryan. I always learn a lot. I really appreciate your passion and everything you bring to the table. So thank you. Thanks. So for closing remarks, Ben and I are really excited we were able to do this event. We have had a few of these events right now. We typically do it once every 3 months. So we are looking forward to our next event. We haven't picked the date yet. So thank you, everyone. I want to start by thanking our team. But before I do that, the most important thing, the team put a link to the CE credits. So please fill it out. You've been here the whole time, so definitely you will get the credit. Please fill it out because it's really important. It's part of the American General Dentistry Academy's process that we follow to give credit. Just fill out the form and then we'll send you the CE. It might take a week, maximum 2 weeks, but we'll try to do it within a week. So please do that. So I want to take a moment to thank our team for putting this event together, for all the organizing, all the work they had to do. I want to take a moment to thank our speakers, starting with Gary, our keynote speaker, Brian, Howard, Erica, Morgan, Tessina, Ryan, obviously on behalf of Ben and I, and both Ben and I hosted a panel. So hopefully you got some value from the panel as well. Ben, I'll let you finish it off. Final thoughts.
That is it. We really appreciate great webinar. Thank you for all your questions. We're going to do our best to get the questions answered. For those that were on the insurance panel, there were a lot of questions there. So just give us some time and we will work on getting those answered. But thank you for attending today's webinar. Hope you all have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Take care, everybody.